Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to set up and use Zoho N8N AI agents like an AI analyst agent that can answer questions about your Zoho data, like who your top leads are, which sources generate the most revenue, finding specific Zoho records and links to them, and much more. An AI executive assistant that sorts your inbox, manages your calendar, and drafts detailed replies automatically, because if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. An AI marketing agent that creates content, blog articles, builds and sends email campaigns, and even generates on-brand images. An AI sales agent that does automatic personalized follow-ups at scale, confirms meeting appointments, and enriches your existing data. An AI training agent that trains your team using your standard operating procedures. I'll even give you a free SOP template so you can delegate tasks and train your team without having to create the SOPs or the training yourself. A native Zoho Operations AI agent that builds custom apps to streamline your internal processes. An AI task agent that creates action items for you. And a native Zoho customer support agent that helps your customers find answers using your knowledge base. Now, I'm Drew Brockbank. I'm the owner of Brockbank Consulting, an elite Zoho partner, and I've set up Zoho for over 141 organizations. This training is beginner friendly. I'll walk you through everything step by step, explain it in plain English, and teach you the basics and everything you need to know so you can go from an absolute beginner to having AI agents doing your work for you. N8N is a tool that helps you build AI agents, and it integrates with Zoho. First, I'm going to show you what it's capable of doing. Second, I'm going to break down exactly how you can use it. So first off, I've integrated Zoho Click with N8N. So I can do things like ask my AI agent in N8N, how do I create an SOP? Now I have an SOP on creating standard operating procedures. That way they're standardized across the board. So it's kind of like a meta SOP. So what's happening now is this request was sent over to N8N. Proof of that here, we go over to N8N. We'll watch that there was a new execution of this agent right here. And what happened was Zoho Click sent a webhook to this agent. Here's the agent right here. And the agent chose to look through my database, fish up my SOP right here, and then send it over to both Zoho Click and Telegram, which is this tool, which we're going to use in just a second. So the cool thing here is instead of me having to search through all my SOPs, imagine I had like 600 SOPs, like a giant database of how to do things. And I had to go through every single folder, kind of fish around, do all these searches, find mismatch SOPs. It would be kind of a mess. Instead, I can just ask my AI agent. It can find the relevant SOP, and it can show me the video for how to do something right here. It's got the links for everything, and it's done it very quickly. I'm also going to ask it, how do I do zlits? And you can see here, I've spelled this wrong, but I want to show you that this AI agent is smart. It enhances prompts, it understands context. So zblitz is a setup task for a Zoho 1 instance. You can see here are the official resources for performing zblitz. So I understood that I spelled something wrong here. I can read between the lines, and it gives me the video here for zblitz, the primary demonstration video. It gives me the template here, the SOP document, everything that I need. Okay, and then the instructions, because I built the AI agent to always say, hey, be careful, don't use this message to execute the thing. Go to the actual document, look through the video. Okay, so it just says that. Okay, so it can get information. We call this unstructured information, right? So an SOP is kind of like a Google Doc, right? It doesn't have like columns and cells and rows like a spreadsheet. So this is unstructured information. Let's see how it does with structured information, which is more like a spreadsheet or a table. Let's say, and we're going to use Telegram for this one. Let's say, can you find Drew Brockbank's contact records for me? Okay, so it's going to take the voice memo, transcribe it, and then it will pop up the output both in Zoho Click and Telegram here. We'll just give this a second to transcribe and pop up. Here we go, Drew Brockbank's contact record. So it found all these dupes that I have in the database. Then it also popped up here as well. Okay, so a little messier on the Telegram side, but it looks really nice here inside of Zoho Click. All right, so it does well with structured data, which is more like a table, which is what we're seeing now. It does well with unstructured data, which is more like a Google Doc / a Word document. Okay, I wanted to show you that it can also trigger automations for me. So let's say I go to Telegram and I say, create a task for Drew Brockbank to make a video on a Zoho 1 implementation and how Zoho 1 can be useful with N8N as well. Okay, kind of long-winded there, 11 seconds. Let's let it transcribe. What I'd like it to do here is I want the AI agent to choose the right tool. So this is what makes something agentic, right? It has access to all this information. So it just completed. You can see it right here. And I'm going to click here. My hope is that it used the task manager tool. And we look here, the message got to the agent. And then we're not going to worry about these two things. By the way, I'm going to break all this stuff down way more simply. I just need to first show you what it's capable of doing so you know that it's worth learning exactly how to use this tool. So it can send an email. It can look through structured information and unstructured information, but it doesn't do that. It decided to use the task manager tool, which is what I wanted it to do because I wanted it to go into Zoho projects and add a task for me. So this is a demo task that I did earlier. Let's refresh this. You can see it added this one. Drew will create a video on a Zoho 1 implementation, explain how Zoho 1 can be used effectively with N8N. Okay, so it did a great job. It added the task. It's in my personal task list. It's assigned to me and ready to go. Okay, so what I just showed you, and I know that's a lot, I showed you some of the things that N8N is capable of doing reactively. When I say reactively, I can ask it a question, it reacts to the question, chooses the right tool, and does something for me. Either fishes up some information that's relevant, or it actually executes an automation. A good way to think about this is it's just like using ChatGPT or whatever AI chatbot you like to use, and it has access to your business information or your personal information if you wanted to hook that up, I guess, and it can trigger automations on your behalf, right? Has access to your information, can trigger automations for you. That's what makes AI agents. But it can also be proactive, and that's what I'm going to show you now. And proactive means you don't have to tell it to do anything. It already knows that on a regular basis or some kind of trigger that you want it to do something, for example. So in this agent within N8N, it will actually find a piece of content that I create on YouTube. So it will find a Zoho News video. And let's just say that I was creating a Zoho News video every single week. And I was wanted to take that video that I worked so hard to create, and I wanted to repurpose it for a LinkedIn post, a Zoho marketing automation campaign, and I wanted to create a blog post based off it. So one piece of content becomes 4 pieces of content: video, LinkedIn, blog post, and a Zoho marketing automation email blast. Okay, all 4 of those. Well, how would I do that? Well, here I'm going to test the workflow, and then I'm going to show you exactly what it does. So on a regular basis, again, this is a schedule trigger. This isn't getting a message. I could hook this up so the message triggers this, but I already know every week I want to make this and that this needs to work. So I'm going to test the workflow. It's going to grab a transcription from rev.com. If you're going to do transcription, this is great. You don't have to use YouTube videos for this. You could do a LinkedIn post and make a LinkedIn post into a blog, into a campaign as well. But you'll notice what's happening now. Took the transcript and it downloaded the transcript, then it transcribed it. It took the transcription download, it summarized it, and now it's asking me a question. It's saying, hey, we just did all this work for you. It's saying, we want you to approve it. So this is how many updates were in the video. And the way it got this really quickly, just to show you, is this ChatGPT basic LLM chain. Just look through the information. Imagine you're in ChatGPT, right? And you say, hey, this is a transcript from a video. Tell me how impactful it was. Summarize it for me. Give me some information. This is the information I asked ChatGPT to give me. So how many Zoho updates were there? Give me the impact score, the blog title. And then I also added something here so that has to be in the same format over and over. It can't give me different formats. Okay, so it looks really good to me. I'm going to approve this. And then you'll notice that it moves forward, right? So it gives me that Gmail. We call that human in the loop. You need to oversee what the AI agents are doing. It's going to wait here. Might fail. I didn't give it a ton of time to create the image. Okay, so now it created an image for me, and I'm going to show you exactly what this did. Okay, it's creating a campaign for me, and now it's creating a blog. Okay, so LinkedIn post, blog, and then this is the Zoho marketing automation campaign. Okay, so let's start with Zoho marketing automation. I'm going to refresh here. We can see new Zoho CRM improves charge timelines. Cool. So here is, it looks so perfect, right? It created this image for me too, and it gave it an impact score. So that impact score that I approved, it literally took a template from, I think I used Placid for it, placid.app. And it showed how many updates are, 7 updates. Let's see if that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's right. 869. It says, hey, on a score of 1 to 1,000, give us an impact score so people can know how impactful are these group of updates to the Zoho platform. So it's created that for me. I can review and launch it. There is an API to just launch it, but I like to give it a look before I send it to lots of people. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Okay, now I'm going to show you the blog post. And so we'll go over to my website, go over to resources. And then you can see here, test this a lot. This is the most recent one. If we go to read more, it's the exact same one, 7 updates, 869. And then you can see here's the 7 updates. Okay, it's the exact same ones that you just saw inside June 14th, date that I'm making this video, 2025. So it's the same there. And then let's go over to my LinkedIn and let's just refresh this. And you can see this is one that I tested, but 1 minute ago, new Zoho updates. So let's delete these. Don't want to muddy this up too much. And you can see it's included all the 7 updates here as well. Okay, so this is a test, so I am going to delete this, but I just wanted to show you that it's created from one piece of content, a piece of video content. It can create 3 other pieces of content, which is very, very helpful. So the important thing to take away from this section of the video is that N8N can be reactive. You can ask it questions and it can trigger automations for you. It can fish up relevant information for you. And you can also use it to be proactive, which means you don't tell it to do anything. It already knows. You built it to know on a certain event, whether it be you make a YouTube video on a schedule, that you want it to do something like turn a YouTube video into 3 other pieces of content. So that is just to give you an idea of what N8N is capable of. Now we're going to slow down. I'm going to walk through exactly how to use N8N. To get N8N, go to Google and search for N8N. And once you get to the page, you can either go to the top right, hit get started, or you can use the link in the description below to get started for free. So once you hit get started, you'll be prompted to fill out a form. Now I've already started an instance. So I already have an account. And so I'm going to just jump into my account right here. So once you sign up, you're going to see something like this, except you won't have any agents because you haven't built them yet. So I'm going to break down some of the parts of the N8N platform just so you know what's going on. And if you have any kind of experience with Zapier or Zoho Flow or any other workflow builder or integration builder, some of these things will be very familiar to you. Okay, so we're inside of N8N. First, I'm going to go over the panel on the left-hand side, and then I'm going to make my way over to the rest of the user interface. So plus here, we've got workflows, and a workflow is just like it sounds. It helps you build an automation. And the workflow builder, we'll get into in just a moment, but you can create either a personal workflow or you can create one in a project, a specific project. I like to just put it in my projects, which you'll see here. Here's the my project icon, the same way that you see it here. When you go over to my project, you see that stack. Here's the stack right here. Then your personal, if you want to create those personal ones, it's kind of like its own folder that you can put it into. Then you've got credentials. So credentials is just a username, a password, a way that you access certain things like Zoho, Supabase, lots of different tools that you can integrate with. You can create the login one time, if you will. We'll call it credential or login one time. Then you can use it across different projects. And you do add credentials to a specific project or your personal, but once you add it, you can reuse it for multiple workflows, which is really useful. Okay, so that's credential. I'll show you more about that in a moment. Then you've got project. If I were to upgrade, I am in the lowest tier of N8N, which is all I need. I use it quite a bit and I don't really need to upgrade. We'll go over the pricing too. Let's just go over it right now since we're already here. I'll just show you exactly how much this costs. So I'm in the starter. It's $20 a month if it's billed annually. But I can also go to monthly. It's $24 a month. So I consider this pretty cheap as far as software goes, especially for how much it can do. Okay. But understand that if you're really going to leverage N8N, you also got to pay for ChatGPT and for the ChatGPT credits, unless you're going to use a different AI, which you can certainly do. You got to pay for their credits. And then also the thing you got to keep in mind is if you're going to use a storage container, like a vector storage, like Supabase or Pinecone, that might cost, that might have some additional costs. So just keep in mind that this isn't all inclusive, but here's the starter. So start with starter. I'm still on starter. I've been using it for quite a bit, for a long time. Then you got pro, which is $60 a month. Still not too bad, I don't think. And then $50 a month if you buy it upfront for a year. So that's on an annual basis. Okay. So we're not going to go into all the nitty gritty details there, but I wanted to give you an idea of the cost. Let's just jump back in here. Now that you can see that project, this is unfortunately limited. I've reached the starter plan limit of 1 project. Oh, that's okay. I'll be okay. If I was building this out for, if I had multiple projects that I wanted to build out, great, I can do that. You can imagine like a project per client, but this is my demo instance of N8N. I don't really want to stray away from the starter plan quite yet. Here's my personal. Here is shared with you. So this is like my personal folder of automations. Cool. Got my workflows here. Then you can see I have credentials within the personal folder. And then I've got shared with me. So if someone shares the workflow with me or credentials or things like that, I would see them here. Workflows, credentials, if they share them with me, I will see them there. So if they're in an N8N platform as well, they'll be able to share those, which is great. And then I've got my project, which is everything we're going to go into in this video. This is my demo instance of N8N. Then I have the admin panel. So if I want to go through some of the settings here to make sure that things are being managed appropriately, I can go through my workspace, billing, export things like that. Then I can jump right back into my instance of N8N. Then I'm back to the homepage. Okay, so here we've got templates that I can have access to. So there's lots of different templates being built here on the N8N platform that you can check out. I find that when I use templates, depending on how they're built, I end up spending a lot of time modifying them so it meets my requirements. Very rarely have I found templates that are just plug and play, but that's just my experience. Feel free to check those out. Honestly, I find templates the most useful for inspiration rather than just like plug and play, download the template, and then I'm good to go. But that's just me. Variables. Clicking here, you can upgrade to make variables that you can use across different workflows, which is great. You got insights, so you can see, hey, how many failures did I have in executing a workflow? And I have different insights like that. So really useful to be able to see those things across the board just to manage what's happening in your N8N instance. Back to my projects here. Okay, so now that we've gone through the left-hand sidebar, you can see that I can expand this. I can collapse this. I can go over to help. Quick start documentation forum course. These are just different things you can go through in order to understand how to better use N8N or troubleshoot if you have any issues. And then I can also see different updates here as well, which is great. Last thing here, I can go over to settings, personal settings, users, N8N API, external secrets, things like that. Single sign-on, LDAP, and then you can log out of there as well. So that is the left-hand sidebar of N8N. Let's get into this interface here. Okay, so the important thing, I guess, to break down is you got these 3 big things. You got the workflows, you got credentials, and then you have different projects as well, right? Workflows, credentials, these are automations, and then access to third-party systems. Because normally, you're not building an AI agent that's independent of your existing tech stack. When I say tech stack, I'm just saying the technology, applications, the tools that you use in order to run your organization. Or if you're doing this for your personal, Most people that I work with have an organization they're running or they're a leader in an organization. So we've got a couple of different AI agents here. You can see the list. I can filter them. I can add folders. I like to doom scroll. Okay. I'm not a big folder person. So Some of you are going to be organization freaks. Awesome. You can start those folders if you want to. You can see I just have one folder because I'm not crazy about that. That's okay. Okay, so you can see some of these are enabled, some of them are not. There's reasons for that. We're going to go over those as well. But now we're going to jump into Agent Prime here. And Agent Prime is what you would consider like my master agent. It has access to most of the tools in my automation tool belt. So now that we've jumped into Agent Prime, you can see at the top left, I can jump back into my project and I can hit Agent Prime again. And that just navigates me through the home page interface, if you will, the initial landing page for the app, and then the agent builder interface. And this is where it gets a tad bit confusing, but I promise it is easier to use than you think. It just takes someone to point it out to you. So you've got this plus icon at the top right. You can add a workflow. Again, personal my project. This is the exact same sidebar that we were seeing before. You're just now seeing it in a different screen, which is the AI agent builder screen. Okay, so everything here is the same. And then we've got my project. It's just helping you understand, where are you? Like if you had 20 projects, which project are you in and which workflow are you in as well? We're in Agent Prime. That's the agent workflow I'm inside of. This is the editor view. If I go to execution view, I'm seeing how many times is this actually triggered. And I'm getting a history or log of what's happened here. So we're going to go back to editor, and then you can see this is the canvas. We're going to go way more in depth on that, but I want to get through some of these peripheral things first. So that's editor and execution view. Then I've got active. Is this thing running right now? Like if I were to go inside of Zoho Click and Telegram and send a message, is it going to work? If yes, it will be active. If no, you'll see that it will be deactivated. Okay. So I can flip that back and forth. It'll say workflow activated. Your triggers will now fire. Got it. Not a problem. Then I can also share this with people. I can share my project, which is great. And then I can see past versions. This is so helpful. I used this in preparation of this video. I was using 2 different devices here for, not for the specific one, but I was using 2 different devices to manage or develop this workflow. And I went back and I'd accidentally saved an older version on a different device. And I used the workflow version history to reset it. So version history is limited to 1 day, but that's okay. What normally would appear here is just the different versions. It's like if you've used a Google Doc or any kind of document that has a version history that you can revert to, it's the exact same thing. It's really, really useful. Okay. So that's the version history. Then you've got duplicate, download, rename, import from URL, import from file. So if you wanted to import a template that you had, great. Then you have these different settings that are workflow specific settings, not account settings, execution order, error workflow, things like that. Lots of different things you can configure. Okay, but duplicate, download, rename, pretty straightforward. If you want to duplicate the workflow, you want to download it, rename it, you can do all that good stuff right here. It's a GitHub integration here, so I could remove that if I wanted to. I don't really need anything with GitHub right now. And then on the right-hand side, we have the plus icon, okay? And this is what gets me into nodes. So in N8N, you're noding, not coding, okay? You can code, you can use code. N8N doesn't shy away from code, but it's not built with thinking you are a software developer / programmer, okay? It doesn't think you're a software engineer. It thinks, hey, this is for everybody, as long as they are willing to go through a little bit of a learning curve to drag and drop the right things in the right places. So what happens next? So nodes are just different capabilities of N8N and other apps. So the most famous node I would say is the AI agent node. It's what allows you to make the workflow agentic. This is an N8N AI agent node that I have in this rectangle right here. Okay, right here, this is an N8N AI agent node. So if I go to AI, you can see the AI agent generates an action plan and executes it, can use external tools. I'm going to break this down real quick because this is really the keystone of the entire platform. I imagine really this AI agent is basically every time it gets a question, it's just saying, hey, you have a list in front of you. This list says you can, here's a better explanation. You can call this tool to convert natural language into SQL and fetch a response. You can use this tool, query this tool to find knowledge inside of Supabase, vector storage. Use this tool for general procedural. So it kind of reads through all these descriptions, right? It says, here's a description for SQL database. This is a description for the SOPs. This is a description for creating a task. You call this agent to create a task. And it says, hey, based on what I was asked to create a task. I can call this one to look through information in the SQL database. I can use this one to find SOPs, and I can use this one to call a task. Boom, I'm calling this one, get the output, and then go forward with the rest of it, okay? So that is what the AI agent really does. It just reads through all these different descriptions and decides, based on what I was asked to do, I'm gonna choose this one. And it just makes a decision, okay? You can also train the AI agent to do stuff as well. I'm not gonna go through all this, but you can read, I think ChatGPT came out with a guide, or OpenAI came out with a guide with how to better prompt AI agents. So maybe I'll link that in the description below, but I'm sure you can look it up. I think it's for version 4.1, which at the time of this video is one of the newer models that AI agent uses, or that ChatGPT has. But let's go over that. Now that you understand a little more about that node, I'm going to go through some other of the nodes here, just so you can understand how to navigate through this. I'm going to go through this section at the bottom left, and then I'm going to dive into more of the AI agent, the chat model, the memory, and then the tools more specifically. Action in app. Do something in an app or service like Google Sheets, Telegram, or Notion, and look at all these different applications that you can integrate with inside of N8N. There is so much here. You can look here. There's a Zoho connection. And there's a couple of reasons why I don't absolutely love this. We're going to go way more in depth as to why. But there's better ways to integrate with Zoho than just its out-of-box connection. That might change in the future, but for now, there's better ways to do it. Okay, so that's action in app. You've got data transformation. These are things you can do in the AI agent builder to transform information, okay, and change things. So you can do an AI transformation, modify data based on instructions written in plain English. You can use code. You can just run a custom JavaScript or Python code. There's so much here. Filter limit just helps you to configure the AI agent to your liking, helps you determine what the builder or the AI agent / automation does. Okay, combine items, convert data. There's a lot here. Then you have flow, which is you determining, we actually went over some of those, but filter, if, loop over items, merge, compare data sets, execute sub workflow. Use that quite a bit. Stop an error, switch, wait, things like that. Just helps you determine the flow of the automation / AI agent. You've got core, run code, make HTTP requests, use webhooks as triggers, things like that. There's a lot here in core. Human in the loop. Essentially, the idea here is, hey, you want to oversee what the AI agent is doing. If you watch the last section of this video, I have a proactive agent that converts a YouTube video into a LinkedIn post, into a blog post, and a Zoho marketing automation email. Well, cool. I want to be looped in there so that before it sends all that, it creates all those posts, I see what it's about to create. A human in the loop via Gmail. It just sends me a notification, says, hey, do you want to do this? And I say yes. Add another trigger. These are just different triggers to start the flow, right? Telegram's a trigger. Zoho Click has a webhook for the trigger. I can trigger manually on app event, right? You can go through all these app events. It's in Zoho. When an account is created, delete an account, create a contact, delete a contact, things like that. Have all of those available options here inside of Zoho. Okay, so those are some of the triggers there on app event, on a schedule, on a webhook call, on form submission, when executed by another workflow, on chat message, and there's other ways as well. Okay, so those are different triggers. So what happens next? These are the nodes. These are the things that you can make N8N do. And these are the different sections that we just went through for those as well. Okay, so now that we've gone through that, here's the test workflow button. Really like the way that they built N8N. It's just makes it a lot easier when you're in the weeds developing things. You can hit test workflow, and it will essentially take information that you've pinned to the node. When I say pinned, let's go through here. You can see I pinned this information. This is in JSON, and JSON just stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's just a fancy way of saying these are lists of information that something like N8N or other tools can understand. It's kind of like the standard for passing information from one app to another. And you can see I pinned the info. So I hit this pin data so that I can test over and over again with the same set of information. Okay. So instead of having to trigger inside of click over and over again, send the same message, I can just pin this message. Let's find the message too. Message text. This one's null. Just fine, but I've just pinned something just to show you. If the message text was, hey, create a task for me in Zoho projects, great. That would be the message text here. So I can just pin that and then test something over and over. I can hit test, or I can hit test here, and then it will use the information pinned to the node to go through the entire workflow. Okay. So that will make more sense when we start building the AI agents, which I'll build. I'll go through the AI agents with you, and we'll use N8N to build an agent just so you can get an idea of the flow. Makes more sense once you're building, but it's a very useful way of developing when you're able to pin information to a node. Okay, so this one is tidy up. We're just going to click it right now. You can see how it tidied things up. Now, tidy up just takes all the nodes and arranges it in a way that's more pleasing to look at. Okay, that's what tidy up does. Then you'll notice while I'm scrolling through this, I use a trackpad. It's kind of fancy. Maybe you're using a mouse. Oh, you guys should really switch over to trackpads. It makes things so much easier. Every time I move around though, you're going to notice here, there's a little map, okay? A little map of where we're at. So I can zoom out, zoom in, and you're seeing basically in this map, as I jump around, it's showing where I'm at. So the cool thing is I can actually click on that map and then quickly drag myself, right? So as I go like this, I can click here, hold it, and then I can like really move around super, super fast. So if we had tons of stuff on here, that would make more sense. But that's what I'm able to do with this map. Okay. And then I can zoom in and out using my trackpad. Guys, get a trackpad. It's so much easier. It's kind of hard. There's a little bit of learning curve, but then you can draw like this, do some cool stuff. Okay. So that is that's the tidy up. That's the map that you see there. Let's use this reset zoom. So this just zooms me into the ground level. This is like the preferred zoom level to see the nodes instead of seeing it zoomed out like this. Hit reset zoom. We're at the ground level zoom. It's just a standard level of zooming into what you are building. I can zoom out. I can zoom in here, or you can use a trackpad to do both really easy. And then you have zoom to fit. Okay. So you have zoom ground level, then zoom to fit whatever you have on your canvas here. This is the canvas, all these dots you're seeing and all the stuff on here. This is the canvas that we're looking at, right? This section here, every time I say canvas, just to be super clear, I can draw a square. Let me draw a big circle. This is the canvas that we're looking at. Great. Okay, so a couple other things here that I think are worth mentioning. If I double click onto the canvas, I can say add node, or there's hotkeys for all this stuff. Use hotkeys if you want to quickly do stuff like tab. I can hit tab here. Here's the node that pops up. I can do add sticky note, shift S sticky note. Great. I can organize things and say things like, I'm able to drag this over. I could say, and you can see it's in markup. I'll just say Telegram trigger. And then now people understand when they're looking at this, this is the Telegram trigger. I can copy and paste that, and I can make this much smaller. And I can just say here, so people understand, because there's not a lot of context, right? You see webhook, you're like, where's this coming from? I can give context to the canvas by saying Zoho click trigger. Now I have that as well. I can change this to a different color if I'd like to. It's kind of cool. And we don't want to do that. Let's cancel that. It's kind of funny. And you'll see, we'll go over more of this in more depth. But you can see here, just want to make this a little cleaner to look at. Got my Zoho click trigger as well. And I'll pull that up just a notch. Okay, so you can organize the canvas this way, which is kind of nice. All right, so in addition to that, you can tidy up the workflow right there as well. You can see here, I can hit Shift Command Z to go forward and then back. So do quick shortcuts to go back and forth through changes that you made, and then select all. That's also in Command A. So you can select all right there, or you can just click and drag over nodes and things on the canvas in order to select them. Okay. So though that is a quick overview of how to navigate through N8N. Let's create an AI agent in N8N and hook it up to Zoho together. So we're going to go over to create workflow. And once I click on this, it's going to take us to a blank canvas within the workflow builder. I'm going to click on add first step. Then we're going to go over to on chat message. Then I'm going to click outside of the node settings to get back to the canvas. Now, basically what this is going to allow us to do, you'll see an open chat button at the bottom, and this allows us to trigger the AI agent / workflow. So I'm going to say hello, and you'll notice that this has been outlined green because it was triggered. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over to add this plus icon right here. We're going to go over to AI, click on it, then go to AI agent. Okay, from here, we want to make sure at a default, it's selected connected chat trigger node. If it's not, you're going to want to make sure that is selected. And then we want this prompt user message to be JSON.chat input. We're going to click out of that. So the AI agent has 3 major components that we want to worry about, okay? And then it has this output, which we'll talk about too. But the 3 big things that we need to worry about for the basics is the chat model. And the chat model is, hey, once I speak to this agent, what kind of model is teaching it how to talk? Or in other words, we want to hook it up to OpenAI. That's what I do. You can use Anthropic, you can use Google Gemini, DeepSeek, whatever you want, but I'm going to use OpenAI. You do need to pay in order to get the credits necessary to use these systems. I'm going to use 4.0 mini, but be aware that OpenAI has released 4.1, which is specifically made with AI agents in mind. So you can select that if you'd like to. I'm going to click out now. And now I can chat with this OpenAI model. I can say, hello, are you there? And now instead of no response, it'll say, hello, yes, I'm here. How can I assist you? And you're basically chatting with ChatGPT. What is the biggest city in Utah? Okay. And now you can see it saying the biggest city in Utah is Salt Lake City. It is the capital. Okay, so it knows things, right? It's just like chatting with ChatGPT. Well, great. Now you'll see one of the problems here, though. Let's say I say Drew's email is drewbrockybank plus 123@gmail.com. Okay. Sorry, but I can't assist with this. It's okay. We'll just say, it says, I'm sorry, but I can't assist with personal information. It can, I'll show you. But I'll say, what is Drew's email? Sorry, I can't assist with that. It just shuts it down because it has no memory. It has no memory of anything. It doesn't remember the last things I've said. So we need to add a memory. It's got a goldfish brain-like memory right now. If you said, hey, draft an email for Drew, and it said, here's the email, and you looked at it and you're like, this is good. And you said, send the email. It would say, what email? And you'd be like, the one you just created. And it'd say, what did I create? It's not usable. So you need to give it a memory. We're going to use simple memory here. We can use Postgres chat memory with Supabase to make the memory better. But for now, we're going to do simple memory just to develop this quickly. It's got a context window of 5, which means you can see the last 5 interactions. I usually bump this up to 10 when I want a live agent, but 5 works perfect for now. Okay. So connected chat trigger node. And just so you can see what memory is really looking at, it's just looking at the message like it's right here. Type is the human. Hi there. And then it's like type AI. Hello there. How can I assist you? So that's what it's looking at. It's just looking at these rows of information. This is in a Postgres database called Supabase, but simple memory works just fine for testing. Okay. So from here, now I can do things like Drew's email is, steal this email. It says, okay, puts it in the memory. Looks like you've shared. How can I assist you? Please remember to avoid sharing personal information. It's totally fine. And then I'll just say, what is Drew's email? And you'll see this time, Drew's email is drewbrockybank plus 123@gmail.com. How did it know at that time? Well, it stored it in a database for memory. and it retrieved that to give it context to the response, which is exactly what we want. So you can kind of think about it if you're using, just like how you use OpenAI, it remembers some of the last things you said in that session, okay? Now we've got the tools. So now that it has memory here, and a model, it's hooked up to ChatGPT, so we can speak to it. We're going to use a tool so that it will actually do something for us. And there's two major buckets I like to think of with tools. You're either getting information, like your CRM information, or you're having the AI trigger automations for you. So one of the automations that we're going to trigger here is within Zoho CRM. And if you haven't already hooked up your Zoho account, you should do that. Go to create new credentials. Then you can go to connect my account. I'll take you through the steps necessary to connect that. So I'll close this. I'm already connected to that credential, okay? We talked about credentials earlier. That's why they're useful. Now I can just have this automatically log in for me every time I lay down a Zoho CRM node to the canvas. Tool description. We don't want this lame description. We're going to set it manually. And we're going to say, use this tool when asked to create a lead. And we're going to go over to lead and then the operation create. And we want to create a lead here in my leads module inside of Zoho CRM. And I'm going to have the company, I'm just going to have it decide what to do for the company, last name. Maybe we'll do first name here too. So we'll find first name. And when I click this, it says, let the model define the parameter. Cool. So I will do this sometimes, but when I want it to be exact, I will define exactly what I want to have come over. So if there was a specific output, I could drag an output here directly into the chat. But in this case, since we're just testing and I don't have a structured output like first name, last name, I am just going to leave it to the model to figure it out, okay? From here, I'm going to click outside of the node settings back to the canvas. And what we're going to do is we're going to test this tool. We're going to see if this AI agent can understand when to create a lead and how. Create a lead for Drew Brockbank. He works for Brockbank Consulting. So now that I hit enter, it should understand when to use the tool. How does it know when to use this tool? Well, it's only one of one tools. We're going to make this a little harder. But right now it's looking at the description of the tool. Okay, it says use the tool when asked to create a lead. Because it was pretty obvious, create a lead for Drew Brockbank. He works for Brockbank Consulting. It knew to trigger this lead. And did it do it correctly? Well, let's see. Let's grab this ID from the output. We can change this output, by the way, to table JSON as well if we want to see it in different ways. But now that we have the ID, we can go check inside of Zoho CRM to see if it worked by going to the URL of a lead record view page, and then just entering that lead ID to the end of it. You see how it says Brockbank Consulting, Drew Brockbank. It did a great job. It knew exactly where to grab the information from the request/message and where to put it inside of Zoho CRM. Well done. Let's make it a little harder. So we're going to click out of here again. We're going to go to another tool and we're going to go to Zoho CRM. I'm going to click into this. And now we're going to get a lead. So we're going to go over and set manually, make sure the credentials are added. We're going to say use this tool when asked to find a lead record. So now that we've added a lead, we want to get a lead. And so I'm going to do resource lead. That's just what module you're going to look into. And then for operation, we are going to do get a lead. From here, we're going to go to lead ID. We're going to have the model figure out the ID for the lead, okay? As far as grabbing it from the message. So since we have a lead ID here, we can grab this one, but I feel like since we just created this, we need to make it a little harder, right? So we're going to use Amber Brooks record. We're going to do this. And then we're going to go back into the N8N AI agent builder. And we're going to say find the lead with ID and then ID. And then you'll notice it shows the right tool to use. And it says, here's Amber Brooks and all of Amber Brooks information. Very powerful stuff. Now that we've built an AI agent together, inside of N8N, and we've hooked it up to Zoho CRM. I hope this gives you a better idea of how these things work as we move forward with the video. Let's talk about my AI analyst agent that can look through my Zoho information and answer my questions. First, I'm going to show you exactly what this can do. Second, I'm going to show you exactly how it works so that hopefully you can build something similar and of value for yourself. So I'm going to go over to Telegram and I'm going to ask the AI analyst agent a question about my data. How many demo deals have I won total? So that's the question. Very simple. It should be able to look through my data and give me a concise answer. So we're going to wait for that. And while we are, I'm just going to show you the path this will follow. It will go through the Telegram transcription process, and then it should use this database tool, grab the information from the database tool and send it over to Telegram. So we should see here, you have won a total of 44 demo deals. If you would like more details such as deal names, value, and winning dates, please let me know. So it's giving me that information. Very, very useful. Now I'm going to ask it a different question. I'm going to say, how many deals have I closed in the last 3 months? Okay, so it has nothing to do with demo deals, just how many deals have I closed in the last couple months? So it should give me some information on that. We'll let it work its magic inside of N8N and give me an answer. Close a total of 19 deals in the last 3 months. Then finally, I'm going to say, what were the last 5 demo deals that I closed? And then now I want something more tabular. So instead of a concise answer, 44 demo deals, I actually want to see the deals and some information about it. So it should be able to pull that information, fish it up, send it back to me. And we'll see last 5 demo deals closed. Here's the demo deals. So very helpful. It can pull record specific information, or it can just give you a concise summary answer depending on what you asked. So from here, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how this works by going to executions. We're going to go to the last execution of this agent. I'm going to break down exactly what happened. So here we asked the question, last 5 demo deals inside of Telegram. And you'll notice that it started with the Telegram trigger. This is the output from the trigger. And it's not going to have the message here because it just has a file ID. So what I had to do here is I had to say, hey, look, if this has a file ID, more likely than not in voice, then it came from a voice memo as opposed to a written out message. So in that case, we need to transcribe. We need to get the file from Telegram and transcribe it. Now, in the case that it's written in text, it can go right to the prompt enhancer. So it actually gets the file from Telegram. You can see here's the file and says, get the file and transcribe it using OpenAI. So it transcribes it downloads this file, looks through it, and then transcribes what were the last 5 demo deals that I closed. Okay, that's exactly what I said into Telegram. Then we're going to go to the prompt enhancer. What the prompt enhancer does is it takes a message, which we can see here. What were the last 5 demo deals that I closed? And it says, hey, look, you are a prompt refiner AI. That's your job. Your task is to slightly adjust a human written prompt to make it clearer and more directly actionable for an AI agent. So it says, hey, take this prompt, clean it up so that an AI agent can explain it, can understand it better. So what are the last 5 demo deals that I closed? So pretty similar, slightly adjusted, but I like to use that prompt enhancer. And then here I use the 4.0 mini. You can use a much more robust if you wanted to use 4.1, specifically made for AI agents, but I just did 4.0 mini, which is totally fine. Now the enhanced prompt right here, prompt enhancer, what are the last 5 demo deals that I closed? It goes into the AI agent. And with the AI agent, it's got some general instructions of things. You are an agent. Please keep going until the user's query is completely resolved. And what it will do from the AI agent is decide what tool is it going to use. Now, some of the basic things, it has a model that it's running off of, which is the GPT 4.1 model, which is specifically used or made with AI agents in mind. We've got the memory. So it's storing memory of what I said. So it understands, hey, what did Drew say 3, 4, 5 messages ago? And it has a context window length of 10. Just gives a lot of context to the agent before it answers a question. It can look through the past things that have been said. And then the tool, the database query tool. So you can see that it triggered properly. let's go into Supabase Fetch and see what on earth is going on. And you might be thinking, Supabase, why is it fetching from Supabase? I'll explain that in just a moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through executions, and we're going to see the last execution ran here was the one triggered by my AI agent. Okay, it triggered this database query. So once we're inside of this database query, you can see that it grabbed the what are the last 5 demo deals that I closed. And then it passed off to this node. It says, what are the last 5 demo deals that I closed? And here's the natural language query. Okay, so this is the natural language query. And now the system is prompted to say, is prompted with, you're a world-class PostgreSQL developer. Your role is to convert the input, right here, this is the input, what are the last 5 demo deals, into SQL, ready for PostgreSQL database. Here's a simple example for reference. Select count from deals. Okay, just give it a quick example of what's going on. So now it knows its role and it knows what it's supposed to do. Your output must be in plain text and in one line. Ton of different requirements. And then it gives the schema. So here's the thing that you've got to understand. Unfortunately, Zoho does not have an out-of-box tool inside of N8N for searching databases. So what you have to do is you have to integrate your database with Supabase or another PostgreSQL database tool. I use Supabase because it's really easy to use and it's very generous with its free offer. And so it has my deal schema, has my contact schema, and just so that you understand how this works, we're inside of Supabase right now. This is the Supabase table editor. And what we can do here is we can easily go to the 3 dots on the right of any table, and we can go over to copy table schema, and then we can actually paste that into the bot. There are different ways to do this. I think this is the easiest way because you can see it all. But you can also have the schema inside of a table within Supabase as well. So imagine each of these rows was just one set of schema for a specific table. If that's all gibberish to you, that's completely fine. I just want to give you an idea of how these things are working. So the big thing is once it has context to all of the schema, it can generate the SQL necessary. If you don't know what SQL is, it's not technically a coding language. People call it a dialect, but you can think of it like a coding language for interacting with a database. Okay, a database is a bunch of tables, except they link up to each other. So they have relationships with each other. For example, parent-child relationship would be an account, a contact. Contact will have an ID looking up to account. So it's Drew Brockbank, works for Brockbank Consulting. Those are 2 separate records because they're 2 separate things, but they have a relationship with each other. It's called a relational database. So SQL can look through a relational database and ask questions and interact with it. So let's just see what this did, okay? So it turned what are the last 5 demo deals that I closed to select deal name. I'm going to copy all this just to show you. Select deal name, closing date, stage, demo record, Looks like gibberish maybe to some of you. That's okay. We're going to jump into Supabase. We're going to jump into the SQL editor. I'm going to use that and hit run. Okay, and you can see here that it is finding all of those things. Closing dates, demo record from, It worked perfect, okay? And it gave me the number, if you remember, it said 44 deals, 19 sales, has that information right there, okay? So very, very useful. Works perfect. It generated the query and then it pushed it over to Supabase. And I'm going to show you as well inside of Zoho Flow, I actually have the information flowing from my Zoho CRM application into Supabase. So you can see I have an update lead row here. And every time a lead is updated inside of Zoho CRM, I have it pushed over to N8N. There are some different strategies for this. I just like it to happen in real time. You can do a routine sync every couple hours to send it over, but I like to just have it so that as things are being updated and created inside of my Zoho instance, it's quickly pushing to Supabase. So I have it updating here as a real-time trigger, and then it has a custom function to push that over to Supabase. And then also if I go to create row, you can see I have another separate workflow for new lead over to Supabase as well. Technically, you can use the same trigger here in Zoho Flow for module created and updated, but it just has worked better for me to have it real time separate for both, which is why I have that. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a quick idea. This information is syncing with Supabase, but Supabase allows you to do things that you can't do when searching through Zoho natively from N8N. Or in other words, it works better to use Supabase in integration. Unfortunately, I wish there was a way that you could use, technically you can use Coquel in order to make an API call to Zoho and look through its data, but Coquel can't do things that PostgreSQL can. For example, when you search for a name, okay, when I ask for a name like Drew Brockbank, it can use something called SoundX inside of PostgreSQL, and that is a function in SQL that Coquel is like Zoho specific SQL that's used in Deluge. If that sounds like gibberish to you and you're like, I don't even know what you're saying, don't even worry about it. You don't really need to know. This is just extra context. Anyways, SoundX is a function that can be used in PostgreSQL when looking for, let's say, names. It can sound out what you're saying and then find things relative to the sound of the name, as opposed to looking for Drew Brockbank verbatim. And if it's a record is spelled wrong or has an S at the end of it, it won't be able to find it in Coquel. Whereas in SoundX, it can do things like that. So that's the advantage of using PostgreSQL. Okay, it's more flexible, it's more robust, it just works better. So that's why I use Supabase. All right, so it's translated the text into a query so that I can look through my structured database or my relational database inside of Supabase. And now it pushes that information over to a text output. Okay, so PostgreSQL. Oh, sorry, I skipped a step here. So inside the SQL generator, grabs the SQL, and then we have this note here for Postgres, and it takes this text, JSON text, and it then pushes that to Postgres Supabase. So it doesn't say Supabase, but Postgres database is inside of Supabase, so it's working. It actually is pushing over here, and then it's saying, here are the 62 items. Do you see how it says 62 items? Great. Here's all the 62 items that it grabbed, and that has been formatted properly. So we have a quick JavaScript that goes through here and just configures the formatting, and then edits some of the fields here. And then once the fields are edited, it sends that information back to the AI agent and says, this is what I fished up based on what you asked. Okay. So once it has that, it goes back to the main AI agent. And you can see here, we got all the context of a bunch of information here, right? This is all the information that it observed from the output. And then based on these things, you can see the log went to Postgres Chat SQL, went to OpenAI, found the database information. Here's the input, show the last 5 demo deals. And then here was the output. And this was the output that came from the database query. And then it looked through the output, you can see here. And then it gave me the last 5 deals, which we found right here, okay? So that is how these things work at a high level. There's a lot of nuance here, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how this N8N agent is working with Zoho so that I can ask questions about my data and get answers in real time. Let's talk about my executive assistant AI agent, because if you don't have an assistant, then you are the assistant, and you don't want to be focusing on tasks that can be automated or handled by AI. So with that, what can my executive assistant do? Well, number one, it can look through my database. So the information from Zoho, I've connected to a database and I can search through that information. So I can say, find contact information about ABC. If you want to go more in depth on how that works, go to my AI analyst agent section of this video. Okay, I go way more in depth on this tool and how it works with my executive assistant. Also, it can send emails for me. So I can, in my Click chat or in Telegram, I can say, hey, send an email to so-and-so, request an invoice, things like that. I'll show you exactly how that works in this section. I can also have it train me on things. I can say, hey, could you find me the SOP on ABC? I can find the SOP for me. We're going to go way more in depth on this section in another part of this video on the trainer section, the AI training agent. We also have the task manager here. So I can say, hey, create a task on this, and it will go into Zoho projects and add it for me on my to-do list. It can create contacts for me inside of Zoho and create events. And the nice thing is my Google Calendar is connected to my CRM. So if I add events here, it does integrate with Zoho. Okay, final thing here. This is really, really nice. I actually had a executive assistant that was remote who used to do this for me, where they would send emails. I would just send them a chat and say, hey, could you send an email to so-and-so for me? They'd send me a draft response and I would approve it. And my executive assistant, my previous executive assistant, would actually go through my inbox and sort it every single morning, make sure it was correctly labeled, and create draft responses, okay? Now I have this executive assistant do all of that. Yes, it goes through my emails in real time as they're received, labels them, and if deemed necessary, will create a detailed draft response. And it can tell if someone is requesting a meeting and then use my Calendly link. It can do all of that. It's very, very useful. That's actually my favorite part of this thing. With that, I'm going to show you exactly how this works. So I'm going to go into my Zoho Click Chat, which is hooked up to my executive agent. I'm going to show you exactly how this works. So I'm going to say send an email to me at drewbrockbank.com requesting an update on the invoice that I sent. Okay. So this was really vague. Obviously, I don't have what's required here. I don't have the title to send the email. This isn't in a great format to send the email, but you can see that the executive assistant is smart. It understands how to structure these things. So if I go into my agent here in N8N, I go to executions. By the way, all my emails are hooked up to Zoho via IMAP. So this does integrate back into Zoho if you were wondering. Okay, so here we can see exactly what happened. So here's my Zoho click trigger. And we received a message here to send an email to me at Drew Brockbank to requesting an update on the invoice. Okay, my prompt enhancer cleaned it up. Just looks a little nicer, and it's more ready for the AI agent to interpret the request, which is send an email requesting an update on the invoice I sent previously. Okay, it uses this ChatGPT model 4.0 mini to interpret the response. That's the large language model that it's using to understand what I said in natural language. Now, if we go over to the executive assistant AI agent, it uses, again, ChatGPT's OpenAI large language model. This one specifically, 4.1, was built for AI assistants, and it interpreted the request using that large language model, and then also added this chat to the memory bank. Okay, and this memory bank / database is hooked up to a Postgres database. If you don't know what that means and it sounds like gibberish, don't even worry about it. It's not critical for you to understand right now, but essentially it's hooked up to Supabase. This is Supabase. Okay, so then once it gets to the executive AI agent, what happens here is it looks through the request. Okay, so you can see some logs. Here's the different actions that it took here. And so I'm just going to walk you through exactly what it did. So it took the request. Here's the request. Let's move this over. It says send an email requesting an update on the invoice I sent previously. And then it looks through all these tools that it's connected to. Okay, so you see this tool section right here. There's the 3 main parts that are required to get this agent to work. There's the chat model, which I said was OpenAI's large language model. The memory, which stores the past interactions so that if you ask it something and it doesn't have goldfish memory, it can see the last 10 interactions. You can see here. It can see the last 10 interactions that you've had with the agent. And then it has all these tools. And what it does is it looks at this request. It says, okay, send an email. And it says, I need to send an email. So I'm going to read through each tool description. And it says, okay, this tool says, call this tool to convert natural language into SQL and fetch the response from the database. Okay, that doesn't match. Then it reads the Gmail one and it says, okay, this Gmail one obviously is to send an email. And the tool description for this one was set automatically, okay? So it knows, and when I say set automatically, essentially AI is creating the tool description. It says, use this one to send an email. Then it looks through the Supabase vector. And it says query this company SOP knowledge base, doesn't match that one. And then it does match this task. It doesn't match this task manager one. Call this agent to create a task. It doesn't match this one, and so forth, right? You get the point. It reads through all those and it says the one it matches best with is this Gmail one to send the email. So I'm going to send it to this email. And then you'll see here that if I refresh inside of Gmail, we have this draft response here, request for an update on previously sent invoice. So it says, hello, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to follow up and kindly request an update regarding the invoices sent previously. Could you please provide me with the current status? Okay. So you'll notice that it sent the email to the right person. It also, interestingly enough, created a draft response. Hi, thanks for reaching out. Have your invoice and I'm working on it now. Should have payment soon. I'll update you if anything changes. So a pretty detailed response, and it actually sounds like me and emails I've sent previously, which is great. It's short, it's concise, and it's broken down in the way I'd normally break down an email. Also, you'll notice here, I'm just going to delete that it has the correct label. One Drew is just my way of saying I actually need to respond to this thing. And then I'll break down more how it sorts the inbox and creates draft replies. But I wanted to show you there that this executive agent can send emails. Okay, so that's the big thing there. And then you can see here also inside of Click, it said an email has been sent. It's confirming that it did the thing I asked it to do. Now I'm going to go back here and we're going to go to the next thing. So consent emails, you saw how that works. And sort my inbox, create draft replies. Also, it can create tasks for me. So if there's something I need to do, and I want to make sure it's on my list, I can go over here. We're actually going to switch over to Telegram. This is a versatile agent. It can take 2 inputs from Telegram and from Click. And I can say, create a task for me to create an action plan for my client ABC regarding their Zoho implementation. Okay, so a little longer request here. The agent is going to be able to break down the voice memo, or in other words, transcribe it. I'll show you that in just a moment. And I'll show you exactly what happened. So we just heard the ding. We're going to go back here. Task has been created. Excellent. That's what we want to hear. Okay, so back here to the AI agent, we're going to go through this, this workflow execution to see how it handled the task. So we'll notice here that it went through the Telegram route this time. That's why it's not highlighted green on the Zoho Click trigger. And we got the voice, or we got the file ID, right? I didn't text anything out, or I didn't send a message, so it can't see the text yet. So I just get the file ID. This switch realizes that if the file ID exists, then it should go through this path. And if the text exists, it should go through this path. Or in other words, if it's a voice memo, get transcribed. If it's not a voice memo, don't get transcribed, just go right to the prompt enhancer. So Telegram, we get the file into the agent, and then the agent can break it down using OpenAI's transcription function, or node. We call this thing a node. It's something that does something inside of N8N, takes the file, and then breaks it down into text. Create a task for me to create an action plan for my client ABC regarding their Zoho implementation. Okay, did a great job with the transcription. The prompt enhancer now takes that, cleans it up, and then it sends it over to the executive assistant so that the AI agent can decide what to do next based on the tools available to it. Okay, so again, imagine the executive assistant. Put yourself in the shoes of the agent here. You're going to read through every single one of those tools and decide which one makes the most sense based on the question. And you would choose this tool here, Task Manager. It says, call this agent to create a task. Okay, so then it calls this tool and it will create the task for me. You can see that that's been done here. If I refresh now, this screen, we should see a task created. Drew will develop an action plan for client ABC regarding their Zoho implementation. And I've trained this agent, or this tool specifically, to create this in the language I create all my tasks, which is in who, will, what format. Who exactly is going to do the thing? Will is very actionable. If you say, I will do this, it just makes it seem like you're going to do it more than say, develop an action plan. I just like the who, will format, and then exactly what they're going to do. Okay, so it did a great job. It assigned it to me. It got it done, and it's under my task list. That's everything I wanted it to do. Okay, so it did that perfectly. And let's go over to Zoho CRM, create a contact. and I will show you how this works. So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create this. I'm going to say create a contact in Zoho for Drew Brockbank. His email is abc@brockbankconsulting.com. Okay, so create a contact for Drew. Let's see how the AI agent handles this request. So we're going to give the AI agent a second to add the execution to the log. We can see it completed very, very quickly. It says it's been successfully created in Zoho. Let's see what it did. It called the right agent. Again, it read through everything and it went through the correct tool. And you can see that here's the ID for the tool. It's been created properly in my system. So we could jump into the CRM. Here's a demo record that I have, and you can see if I put in the ID, that it will take me to the record abc@brockbankconsulting.com. Okay, so created the contact for me properly inside of Zoho CRM, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. Great work for the AI executive assistant here. It's doing a great job. Let's go over to the next thing that this executive assistant AI agent can do, which is create a Google Calendar event. Now we're going to spice it up here. And when I prompt my AI executive assistant, I'm going to give it 2 requests and see if it can handle both. Create a calendar event for next week at 1 p.m. for me to create a Zoho action plan for my client XYZ and create a task for me as well. Okay, so pretty long. It's 2 requests, create an event and create a task. So we're going to go over here. We're going to wait for a new execution to add to the log, which we can see right here. It's running. Once the execution is finished, we're going to be able to see that. And now we see we've received a response. Okay, your requests are complete. Here's what's been done. A calendar event has been scheduled and a task has been created. So you can see the details here, but I want to verify that this was done correctly. So I'm going to go over to my Brockbank Consulting project, which is just my task list. And I'm going to see if there was an event or a task created. Drew will create a calendar event for next week at 1 p.m. and we'll create a Zoho action plan for client XYZ. Okay, cool. So it's in who, will, what, when format. Drew will create an event. Drew will create a task to complete Zoho action plan. And it did a pretty good job. There's some things that I would change about this, right? I don't want 2 actions as 1 task, but it's still pretty good. Let's go over to the calendar. If you're a time boxer like me, then you time box, and you can see here that we've got a time box for this action. Create Zoho action plan for client XYZ. Did it at the right time, 1, and it was done perfectly. So great work for the AI agent there. Now we're going to wrap up by recapping everything this executive assistant AI agent can do. So first and foremost, it can look through my database. The data in Zoho can be searched by my executive assistant AI agent. If you want to see more about that, go over to my AI analyst agent. It'll go much more in depth on how that works. Then it can send emails for me. So I can give a vague request, hey, send an email to so-and-so. It can look through my database to find that contact and then send them an email. And it can flush it out, make it professional. Even if I write something out that's kind of scrappy or that's just a little rough, it will polish it and send it off for me. Then it can also, this executive assistant AI agent can look through my SOPs. We're going to go much more in depth on that on the training agent section of this video. So just hold tight for that. It can also create tasks for me. So I have a task list of the things that I want to do in my day. It can create those tasks. It can create records inside of Zoho once I ask it to, and it can create events and manage my calendar. In addition to that, it can manage my inbox. So as incoming emails are received, it can automatically sort those emails into the right folder/label and create detailed draft responses if deemed an email that I need to respond to. Here's how my executive AI assistant agent sorts my inbox and creates detailed draft responses. So if I go over to Gmail email sorting here, this is the workflow that kicks it all off. Now the trigger here through Gmail is polling. So instead of as the event happens, which is receiving an email, it is polling every single minute. And it's saying every minute it's going into my inbox and saying, is there a new email? No? Okay, do nothing. Okay, there's 2 new emails, go through them and sort them. Okay, so it's pulling every single minute. That's the trigger. By the way, my email is integrated with Zoho via IMAP. So all the emails coming in here are also correctly associated automatically inside of Zoho CRM. That's what's really helpful about the CRM. Keeps my communications very clean and very organized. Next thing that happens here is my Gmail. This Gmail node will grab every message in the thread. That way, my AI agent here, it's called BigQuery AI agent, but it would be better labeled email sorting agent, can actually look through the email and all of the thread and make the best decision possible on where to put the thing, what to label it. So you can see here that I've added all of this information, which is the rest of the thread, and then the initial, and then the actual email that was just received. So in other words, it reads through the email and all the emails in the thread, and it makes a decision on what to do with it, which tool to use. You can see each of these tools have a description. Call this tool to label the message 1 Drew. You can see here I have this one. Call this tool to label it review, and then call this one to label it waiting. Okay, it's got message ID and then message here, and then also it goes through this these instructions, which is me telling it exactly how to behave. Okay, and giving it detailed examples. It's a very long prompt. OpenAI came out with a document on exactly how to prompt AI agents in the best way possible. So I went through that, and then I created my BigQuery AI, not my BigQuery, my email sorting agent. I prompted it correctly. Okay, so let's go through the craziest one, which would be 1 Drew. Okay, so it sends the message ID and it sends the message. This one's kind of unique in that it doesn't have the message showing red, but it works just fine. And I'll show you exactly how it works here. So we're going to jump back to email sorting. We're going to save this. And then what happens here within label email 1 Drew, these are emails that are deemed worthy of my response. I essentially tell the agent, I don't want to respond to everything. I'm busy. So just pick the ones that are asking me to do something, okay? Or that just require a little quick response. So when this is executed, it just passes the message ID, then it gets the message, okay? So it gets the message, and then the agent is able to read what the message actually is. Then it grabs the rest of the thread, okay? So it doesn't just grab the email that was sent to me, it grabs all the emails that were sent in that thread. Well, not all of them, it grabs a bunch of them. And then it removes the inbox label. Now, this is really important. This is how you archive it. It doesn't have an archive function. You remove the inbox label. That way it exits out of your main inbox. If you believe in zero inboxing, which I do, zero inboxing is just, hey, every time an email comes in, you put it in the correct folder. You want a zero inbox every single day. It just keeps things nice and tidy. And if you use this agent, it does it for you automatically. You never have to do it again. You never have to do it again manually. Then this AI agent will say, okay, your objective is to respond now. So you're going to respond based on the message that I received, based on the messages in, because you don't want it just based on the message that you received. If there's a thread and you're going back and forth, you want it to read the last couple of messages so that it can give a contextual response, or in other words, it understands the context of what's been talked about, okay? Then I give some examples, and there you go. There's my prompt there. You can take that. And you just need the model here. You don't need memory here. You don't need a tool. The memory is basically what this section is, where it's giving the thread responses from the thread, and then it creates the draft, okay? So this draft is created automatically every single time there's a label 1 Drew. 1 Drew just means, hey, Drew needs to respond to this. So it's really useful. Because now I just go into my inbox. It's already pre-sorted for me by my executive assistant AI agent, and a draft has been created automatically for the ones that I need to respond to. And I kid you not, about half the time I can just send it, and then the other half I have to go through it, kind of modify some things. But for those transactional messages, it's really easy. For those more detailed responses, it just helps me not start from a blank page. That's the worst feeling in the world. You got to open a blank page. It's like you're trying to write something. You start with a blank page and you're like, where do I even start? It's nice when it's at least pre-created for you so you can fill in the blanks and then ship it off and just send it. So really love this agent. This is my favorite agent. It sorts my inbox, and my inbox is always under attack. I just get inundated with messages this thing sorts them like a champ and makes my life so much easier. So that's how it works. That's how the label email one Drew works. You can see here I have review and waiting. This is just the AI agent is trained that, hey, look, if this is something that I need to do in a bit, but I don't need to act on now, or more correctly said, if I'm waiting on someone else to do something before I can move things along, then I put it in waiting. And then if I just need to maybe look over it, but I don't need a response, it goes into review. And then if I need to respond to it, go to one Drew. I have not had very many instances where it has wrongly labeled things. There's a couple times where it was supposed to be one Drew and it was review, but like 90% of the time, I do not have that issue. Like more than 90, it's almost always correct, which is great because I give it context. So it knows, hey, this was the message that was received. These are the ones that were received before. So we're going to label it one Drew correctly or review or waiting. So with that, that is how my executive assistant AI agent sorts my inbox, creates draft responses for me, and I will see you in the next section. Let's talk about this marketing AI agent. So what this can do is it can take a piece of content, in this case, a YouTube video, and it can turn a piece of content into other pieces of content, like a marketing automation email that you can send out to your list, like a LinkedIn post that you can post on your LinkedIn profile, and like a blog article that you can put right on your website. Okay. So yes, this AI agent creates the image dynamically and populates certain parts of the video based on the text. So it's relevant to the message that is there. And it's just a little more eye-catching and looks professional. I'm going to show you exactly how this thing works. So first and foremost, it pushes the piece of content, YouTube in this case, over to rev.com. Now you can push one of your own pieces of content if you want to juice more out of it. Or in other words, if you're going to work so hard on creating a piece of content, don't you want to repurpose it and publish it in multiple places automatically? Isn't that the dream? In that case, if you're using YouTube, I highly recommend rev.com for sending it over for transcription. Transcription is just taking a video and extracting all the words from it so that you can use the words for something else. Okay, so that happens for rev.com. You don't have to use YouTube. If you want to repurpose a LinkedIn post that you created or a blog article, great. You can turn a blog article into a LinkedIn post, vice versa. Whatever you want to do, you can repurpose pieces of content, video, text, or anything else that you're creating. Okay, so the other thing here to keep in mind is you can do with your own piece of content, or if you want to take inspiration from someone else's piece of content, I don't recommend wholesale ripping off someone else's content. I don't think that's cool. But if you want to take their content and add value to it, take inspiration and then create your own piece of content, people are already doing that, right? I watch content creators that inspire me. I base a lot of what I'll do off of them. I don't think it's cool to wholesale rip them off, but you can also use, what I'm trying to get across here is you can use other people's content too, okay? But be careful with that. Get transcript, summarize, and post. So what happens in this particular AI agent is rev.com has an API. If you're not familiar with technical jargon, API stands for Application Programming Interface, and I can actually log into rev.com and download a YouTube video and then get the transcription. I don't want to do that. So the API just says, if you want to use our app via code or automation, these are the rules. And these different URLs are called endpoints and they do certain things. So I post a webhook, or in other words, I train N8N to take the URL, publish it in the URL automatically, and that will enable rev.com to extract text from a video, okay? Now, the reason I'm not going to demonstrate this part is it takes like 30-ish minutes to transcribe a video. I don't want to wait on that. So I've already added a completed transcription request from rev.com to start here. Just some added nuance here. I think it's important to be detailed. Once rev.com is done with the transcription, it's been trained to call this webhook right here. And this webhook is our API. It's saying, if you want to work with our AI agent, these are the rules. This is the URL that you have to publish or put in your URL bar and hit enter in order to interact with us. Okay, so I'm going to start the workflow so you can just pretend that rev.com said, hey, we finished with the transcription, and it triggered this webhook. So then once this is triggered, we know it's done. We grab the attachment from rev.com. We grab the attachment, we put it into the workflow. And then this basic LLM chain will turn the text into what we want it to look like. a Zoho News update in this case. Okay, that's what it does. And so once it takes the Zoho News update, we clean it up a little bit, we remove some of the markup, and then we say you're an AI agent and your job is to do this. And the job's kind of big, but essentially it's like, hey, take the text and output a impact score, the rationale, like why you decided to give that score, the news updates, news title, news slug, things like this, because we're going to use this information later in the workflow. Okay. So next thing here, it's asked me to approve. So I'm going to go over here. We're going to go over to the approval and I'm going to hit approve right here. It gave me a new approval. Once I hit approve, then it's going to move forward with the workflow. So the nice thing about the approval flow is it essentially gives me a chance to look through what it did. Okay, so how many updates are we looking at? 6. Impact score 871, right? Closer to 1,000, the bigger the updates are. New Zoho CRM chart view, and then I can look through all the updates that happen in Zoho. So it's really nice for me too, because I got a lot on my plate. I don't want to spend every single day looking through the new things that happen in Zoho, but once a week, I can spare some time to go through this too. So it's useful for me as well. So you can see it's going through the entire flow now and no errors. So we're going to go through it really slowly here. Then it uses placid.app. Okay, it finished the whole flow. Great. So it goes through placid.app. Now, I could show you in placid.app how this works, but this is not a placid.app tutorial. But basically, Placid, I'll just go to the homepage of the website so you can see here. Yeah, that's great. Let's do placid.app. And essentially what this can do is you can automate the creation of images. So you see here some example images. This is the one that I create using placid.app. It essentially uses this as a template. And then Placid, I can tell Placid, hey, I want you to change this to 8 and this to 946. And these are placeholders. You can imagine them like merge tags if you're familiar with that concept. That's what Placid does, okay? So next thing here, we're gonna go inside of N8N and you can see what happened is we made a request to Placid. So we said, this is Placid's API. Guys, an API, it's just a list of URLs and it says if you enter this URL in the URL bar here, with your app, then we'll do something for you. That's all an API is. It's just a list of URLs saying, if you do this, we'll do this for you. Okay. And then if you want to look at Placid's API documentation, it's just the list detailing out what those URLs do. It has really good documentation. I found it pretty easy to set up. So anyways, it sends a request and says, hey, I want to create an image. And here's the image URL. And then from here, we actually download the image so that we can get it. And then we create the LinkedIn post. So let's go see the LinkedIn post that was created. Okay. So I showed you this earlier. My last post was 2 days. If I refresh this, we should see another one that was just created. We can see 1 minute ago, this was created and you can see the post looks phenomenal, right? Looks like I put it together. It looks perfect. So we're going to delete this because this is an example, but you get the idea. Created the LinkedIn post. We love it. Next thing here, after it creates the LinkedIn post, it goes through some JavaScript that I've added. And this JavaScript just turns this Zoho News Update post into HTML. Why does it turn it into HTML? Well, I have to make sure it's ready for Webflow. And Webflow and my email need HTML format, okay? So it turns it into an HTML format here. And then it creates, so once it's in HTML format, it will actually post to Zoho Marketing Automation. Do you see how this isn't in plain text? Plain text would look like an email if I sent it to you directly and just said, hey, how are you doing? Book here to schedule your meeting or something like that. But this has like the white bars on it's gray in the background. You can see it's not just full wide. It's got an image up top, right? Plain text doesn't have images. It's got some emojis in here. It's got all this stuff. So we had to make sure it was in an HTML format. So I converted the plain text that was needed for LinkedIn and I turned it into HTML. And then what I did here with the N8N agent for Zoho is I call Zoho's API, and that gives me an access token. An access token is essentially, I can't show you this because then you can access parts of my Zoho instance that I don't want to give you access to. Essentially what it does is Zoho has an API too. It says, hey, if you want to create a campaign inside of Zoho, here's our documentation. So you can go to the create campaign documentation if you want to take a look at that. And I can show you the new campaign that was created here, because we're going to jump out of here. And then you can see here's the draft that it created. Now I could just have it send as well. I just don't want to do that. So you can see this is the same one, right? 6 new updates, impact score 871. That was the same in the LinkedIn post, if you recall. Then also, if we jump over to Webflow and I refresh this, you can see we have the exact same one here. 6 new updates, 871, okay? So it's 871. It's the exact same set of updates. In an instant, it creates 3 different pieces of content based on a piece of content. So it's extremely robust. Let's just finish this off in N8N. Once it creates inside of Zoho Marketing Automation, it sends a call to Webflow. You can see here, it doesn't have a default Zoho Marketing Automation integration. So we have to do it via API. And then guys, the access code /token, that's just your way of logging in through N8N, okay? So if there's not an out-of-box integration, the usefulness of the out-of-box integration, they handle what's called authentication. Authentication is just logging in via an automation or a script of some kind. So if you're not able to get the out-of-box, which you'd find the out-of-box thing through here, you just go to Webflow. You can see there's an out-of-box one. If I go to Zoho Marketing, there's nothing there. But if there's a Zoho, there's Zoho CRM, right? But I don't post mass emails in Zoho CRM. That's not what it's built for. It sends 100 emails at a time, 1,000 a day. It can't send these big blasts that I want to. So I had to use Zoho Marketing Automation. Zoho Marketing Automation is better than Zoho Campaigns if you're trying to decide between the two, by the way, as a side note. Then it creates the Webflow blog article. Quite a bit here. Then I've got some parking lot items. Those are just other things I had to use in order to get this thing done, but it worked perfect. That is my proactive marketing agent. I don't have to command it. I don't have to tell it. This works in the background. I love this thing. It works extremely well. And I will see you in the next section. Let's talk about my sales AI agent. So the reason that this thing is helpful for me is I'll go throughout my day. I'll have lots of different sales calls, and then I'll forget to follow up. I just have so much going on. I don't have time to send them helpful resources. Here's a piece of content that I created. I don't have time to do that, but my AI agent has time to do it, and it can do it, and it's never tired of doing it. So that's why I love this agent, because every Monday and Wednesday, I have this thing trigger and tell my AI agent, hey, look, here's your instructions. You're an AI agent and you're a world-class sales professional. Your task is to identify the top 5 leads in my database, choose a video for them, and then send it to them. Here's a template, go. And it works really well. So I'm gonna show you a previous execution of this thing, and I'm just gonna walk you through exactly how it works. Because if you want to have an AI agent create personalized messages at scale, this is the way to do it. Because it's not just sending a template to the top 5 people. It's using the template for reference, but it's actually sending a personalized version of the template to each person. Let me show you. So if we go over here to the execution section, we can see it's all green, which means it fired perfectly. So it fired on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, it said, hey, AI agent, kick things off. Here's your instructions, which we went through. And then it says, okay, I got my instructions and I have these 2 tools that I can use. So what makes something agentic is after it's given instructions, it can use multiple tools and execute them in an order that makes sense based on the instruction. So these are baked in. Now I'm going to take a step back. You'll notice here, because this is a proactive agent, it has instructions and it doesn't have instructions from me, right? I didn't go into Telegram. I didn't go into Click and ask it to do something. It already knows what to do. So the reason that I bring this up is a proactive agent works differently than a reactive agent. The reactive agent triggers when I go into Telegram and I leave it a message. Okay, that's how it starts. So that's how we kick things off. It reacts. I call it reactive because it reacts to a message that I sent it. Now, a proactive agent works differently. A proactive agent, I don't need to go into a chat and initiate things. It takes the initiative for me because I predetermined when it was going to trigger. Okay, so that's the difference. Now, the AI agent, once given instructions, it looks at the tool and says, hey, look, so I call this tool to convert natural language into query. And basically, if you're not technical, a query is a coding dialect. Some people will call it a language, but technically it's a coding dialect where you can string together information in a database. So you can say, using SQL, you can say, grab this column from this spreadsheet column in my database. And we're going to filter by this field and by this criteria. Basically, what this tool does, it's really good at taking natural language, turning it into an SQL query. We don't have time to give you an SQL masterclass, but it essentially takes natural language and makes it query ready to put it through Supabase, which is what I use to store all the information that I query. Okay, so that's what it does. It calls the through the database, because what it's trying to do here is it's saying, hey, I need to find the top 5 leads based on their lead score. And I already have automatic scoring going on in the CRM. It updates Supabase. And then this tool will look through all of the information in my database and give the AI agent 5 different emails. And you can see how that works here. It'll say here, call N8N tool, and it found the records. Okay, so it brought a bunch of records. You'll notice, hey, that's not 5. That's more than 5. That's okay. It just brought back, hey, these are the top ones by lead score, and it included the lead score there, which is what we needed. And then based on the lead score, it goes here and says, hey, your role is to identify this and then create the, for the top 5 leads here, create a message. So here's the draft: email to Olivia, email to Ahmed, and it goes through the entire thing. Now you'll notice the interesting thing here is this section is dynamic. Okay, so I made a detailed video on Zoho CRM training, That's the same, but it changes here. It might be useful for you as a leader in a nonprofit. It might be useful for you as a photographer managing your portrait and restoration services. You can see it might be useful for you as a consultant providing technical support services. It's little things like that where people will probably think to themselves, maybe that's AI. That's AI talking. That's not actually Drew. But it's enough to be like, well, that is personal to me. Like, that is what my business does. Okay. So these are examples, but it works really well. And that's the point that I want to get across here, is that it's dynamic. It's creating personalized messages at scale. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to just send templates here with an AI agent. You want to personalize them. So now that it's collected them, the 5 different leads that it's going to send to, and it's created the messages, it needs to send them off. So it uses Gmail to send it off. You can see here's the ones that it's sent off to. And then it goes back to OpenAI and it says, hey, look, we did it. These are the ones that we sent off. And it sends me a message saying this is what we ended up doing. So then I get a message on Monday and Wednesday saying, hey, we sent off these 5 messages to your top leads. Just wanted you to know these are the emails that we sent. I look over them, make sure that AI did a good job. You can see it sent off these 5 emails. It worked perfect. And then it goes over to the chat, and then it adds this to the chat memory bank so that if I ever interact with this in a chat fashion, I can go to the memory and say, hey, these are the last 5 that you sent. Or it can look through, I can train this thing in the future. Hey, look over the last couple messages because I don't want you to send the same video. That way it doesn't have goldfish memory. It's like, oh yeah, I sent this video last week. You can look through the memory and say, don't send that. I sent it, or not last week. I sent that on the last round of messages. So the idea I want to get across here is this AI agent is capable of emailing your leads and your contacts, your prospects, people that you want to keep in touch with for you so that you don't have to do it. The nice thing is it taps into my database of not only contacts and leads, it also has access to my YouTube videos. So it can just look through, hey, these are all Drew's YouTube videos. These are ones most recently created. This is how many views they have. And it can make smart decisions for me. And I just can spend my initial time in setting this thing up, and then it can sell for me while I sleep. If you want an AI agent to go through your meetings, look at who's attending, and confirm that they're going to show up, then you want to use the sales meeting agent. And the sales meeting agent is extremely useful for me because sometimes I'll have like 10 meetings in a day, and I want to make sure that the people who booked on my calendar are actually going to show up. So I have this schedule trigger. And while I still have a pretty high show up rate, it's just nice for me to gauge at the very beginning of the day. You can see this schedules. This is in cron. This is a cron format, but it's on Monday and Tuesday. Okay. So Monday and Tuesday are my busiest days for sales calls. And I just want to make sure that the people who booked are going to show up. So this happens at 9 a.m. So right at the beginning of the day on Monday and Tuesday. Okay. I could change this You can look up on ChatGPT or look up on Google exactly the expression that you would want to use for your specific timing of sending this, but I do it Monday, Tuesday at 9. So right here, my AI agent is then prompted. Okay, let's take a look. So this format, if you're like, what on earth is this? This is the best format to essentially tell the agent what its job is. And OpenAI has released documentation on what's helpful for AI agents to receive as far as instructions. So you can check that out. But that's what I base this off of loosely. I've read through that documentation and I found that this structure works well. This right here, this hashtag or pound general is a, this is markup language, okay? Now, I'm not using a ton of it, but that's why it's formatted that way. Okay, so you are an AI agent responsible for confirming meeting attendance. Each day, perform the following tasks. Look up today's scheduled meetings and their attendees. Right now it's, and then I have this little merge tag, and you can see the merge tag output here for the date and the time. For each attendee, send a confirmation email asking if they plan to join. Repeat this process for tomorrow's scheduled meetings. Do not send emails to addresses ending in @Brockbank Consulting. These are internal employees. Do not send an email to me at Drew Brockbank. This is my email address. Please make sure MST is included. Use the following message. Bop, bop, bop. Okay, so this is the template. Pretty straightforward. So what ends up happening here, and we can look at a recent execution so that you can see how this works, is the AI agent will then choose what tools to use and how. So you can see that first it jumps into the calendar, and I have this note here that will grab a calendar, that will grab all of the calendar events within a period. So after now, and then before a day. So it's not grabbing from 2 days into the future. It's just that day's events in my Google Calendar. And then it will return them. So I do a limit of 50. You can do a limit of 5 if you don't have that many meetings. I just left it at 50. And once it grabs all those, then it sends emails to each of them. This is just the send message Gmail email node, which is extremely useful. And so it takes that information back into the AI agent and says, what do you want to do with it? And then to be a little more specific with how this works, you can see the logs here. It initially interprets the baseline request that you give it, or sorry, the instructions that you give it, looks through the calendar, and then it brings that information back into the agent to look at it and says, hey, great, we got all this information. The job's not done. Let's send these emails out. And then it sends all the emails out asking for them to confirm their attendance. And then it ends with summarizing what happened, and then it pushes it off to me through either Telegram or Click. That's where I've hooked this thing up. It will tell me through Telegram and or Click. It can do that and say what was done. But I don't worry about having it respond back to me in the logs. I just want it to do the job. I don't really need an update. So that's what happens every Monday, Tuesday, 9 a.m. AI agent is trained to go through my calendar and then go through and send emails to everyone saying, hey, could you confirm your attendance? And I love this AI agent. It just gives me a really good understanding of who's showing up to the meetings, and it sends emails dynamically for me. If you want to enrich your data, which means you take some of the information that you have about something, so for a lead, it might be first name, last name, and you want to enrich or get more data, which would be something like their title, their LinkedIn profile, maybe their website, a summarization of their website, or if you just want to generate a list of prospects or potential customers, or if you want to scrape information on the website, then you're going to want to use Claygent, right? This is a tool called Clay. If you look up Clay AI, you'll see an icon like this. And Clay is a great tool for enriching information, generating lists, and scraping sites. I'm going to show you exactly how this works for me. Okay, so this is a great AI agent for data enrichment. And what I do on my website is I try to get people to book a free consultation. And when they jump onto the book free consultation form, they fill this out. And you can see here, there's first name, last name, email, organization name, phone number. What would you like to discuss? Here's the thing. I don't want to increase the number of fields that someone has to fill out, because then I increase the drop-off rate. Okay, so more people will drop off the more that I require them to do things on the form. So I want to make sure there's still a good amount of people filling out the form, but I still want some additional information. Like, I want to know what they do. I want to know how long their organization's been around. There's a lot of information that I want that I'm not going to ask them here because I don't want to drown them in paperwork. So what I do is inside of Zoho Flow, which if you don't know about Zoho Flow, it's a workflow builder and integration platform. It essentially allows you to build automations and integrations. That's what it does. And I use it to push the information from Calendly. So you can see here, here's a Calendly plugin or integration, and then creates the lead in my system from Calendly. And then it gets the Calendly info and then pushes it to Clay. And Clay has the ability to take in information via webhook. If you don't know what a webhook is, it's essentially a computer's way of posting something in the URL. And it will have a unique URL so that if you append anything to that URL, that information will then enter the system. So in other words, it's a way for two systems to talk with each other. And it's by posting it's like you taking a URL and posting it. That's how they're communicating. They're saying, hey, the base URL, that's the target. This is what you're saying. If you hit this, then you'll create a new lead or you'll start a workflow. And then everything appended to it would be something like Brockbank Consulting, Brockbank, Drew Brockbank, things like that. Okay. So essentially by webhook, it can absorb information from another system. So what I do is I push that information from Zoho Flow that you saw here to Clay's API. I make a API call, or in other words, the computer takes a URL that I've designed, that I put together, and it posts it to Clay. So it pushes information from Zoho to Clay, and it will get basic things like Brockbank Consulting, Brockbank, Drew email. And that looks familiar, right? Because that's on the form. But I want additional information to this. So what I do is I use Claygent. And you can see this is Claygent, this little icon here. It's a little goofy, got a little fedora thing on, but this is Claygent. So what Claygent does is I can prompt it to essentially find information for me. So if I go to edit column here, we can see here that it's using the ChatGPT 4.0 mini model. I can choose different models here. 4.1 is specifically built for AI agents. Guys, at the time of recording this, I'm sure there's gonna be a million other versions that come out, but 4.1 at the time of recording this is built for AI agents specifically. And then you can see here's my account, and you can see I gave it a mission. This is just a prompt, right? Imagine that you said in ChatGPT 4.0 mini, you were in the ChatGPT interface and you just said, hey, find the LinkedIn profile for first name and last name and company. If not found, output null. If the LinkedIn profile is found, only output the URL of the LinkedIn profile. Here you go. So that's the mission. It's the prompt. And then I can add some other configurations here to make it work how I want. But the nice thing is then automatically, as people fill out the form, my AI agent is doing work for me. It's going out. It's based on the first name, last name, and company, which is the baseline data that I got. It's trying to enrich the data. It's trying to find the LinkedIn profile. I don't have time to find everyone's LinkedIn profile. And this is nice because oftentimes people will use a tool like Apollo or Zoom Info. And while those things can work, I noticed they work about 20, 30% of the time. Claygent works about 90% of the time. So it does a really good job at finding profiles, using the internet, searching for things, getting real-time information. It does a great job at that. And things like Apollo and Zoom Info, they're great, but they're not giving you real-time info. They have a database and they're saying, we think this is accurate. We update it as much as we can. So this is in real time. So you can see here, it actually got my LinkedIn profile. So you see this is a JSON output. It looks like code. JSON is just JavaScript object notation. It's essentially a structured way for applications to look at information, okay? But in other words, it turns this JSON right here where it looks confusing, it says result, colon, HTTPS, it turns into this, okay? So we're looking at this. So it says result, here's the result, and it's my LinkedIn profile. So it did a good job. Let's check it to make sure that it actually got my profile. You can see it got my profile. So it does a really good job. So now jumping back into Clay here, it takes the URL from my profile and then I can say, hey, grab me some information from that profile like title. So now I get Zoho Consultant. Now here's the thing. I didn't have Zoho Consultant before, right? If you go over here to the form, I didn't have Zoho Consultant. There is no place for title. So now I'm able to grab additional information. Is this always going to be accurate? No, but it does a better job than it doesn't. Or in other words, it works more times than it doesn't. And I don't have to require them to put in information like, what's your title? So very beneficial for me here. And then I can score things as well, right? So if I wanted to score things in the CRM and say, hey, if a title vaguely matches this, give it an extra 10 points because I want to prioritize reaching out to this contact, prospect / lead. Now from here, got connections. So oftentimes it's helpful for me to say, hey, is this person well connected? If so, I'm going to score them more points. Number of followers, what's their headline, a summary, that's really helpful for me. What country are they in? That's really helpful for me because I can determine, hey, look, right now we're just doing business in the United States and in Canada. If that was the case, then I could score people appropriately, okay? Not saying that's the case. I'm saying if it was the case, that would be helpful. But country gives me a good idea because if someone's booking in a country where they don't speak English and I know they booked with me, I know the chances are that I might not be able to even communicate with them. Something like that just gives me more insight, right? And then I can find the company that they work for from their LinkedIn profile, and I can continue this. So right here, I cut it off and basically say, hey, if you got the LinkedIn data, push it back. So you can see this is called the LinkedIn call. What this is doing is this is pushing the information back into Zoho, and I'll show you how that works right here. And I have a webhook inside of Zoho Flow saying, hey, if you hit this URL here, I can't show you the URL, guys, but basically it's a URL that's got a bunch of crazy alphanumeric code kind of thing. And I'm like, if you hit this URL or this webhook or make the API call, that's all the correct terminology to trigger this, then I'll update my lead with the new information like Zoho Consultant, okay? So that's how I push the information back, going back to Clay here. Then I have a second half of this flow. And this one's a little different. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing here. So I say, visit the website in this email, okay? And I could add another layer to this where I say, hey, if the email isn't at Gmail, at Yahoo, all those things, but I don't really worry too much about it. It doesn't. Most of the time people are booking on my calendar. If they're just using it at Gmail, they can, but most of the time they don't. So it says, visit this website in this email, okay? So this is a merge tag, right? It's merging the email from all the way back here. Okay, it's taking this email. And it's saying, what industry is this organization in? Keep your response from 1 to 3 words. If you're not confident or don't know the industry, then do not output anything, okay? So the AI agent does a great job here, consulting services. It found the correct, it did an analysis of my website. It read through it. So imagine the AI agent said, okay, great. It can actually access the website, look through it, and then it can summarize what it does. Website analysis, consulting services. It's just kind of a redundancy there. It's saying, hey, this was the mission. This was the output. And then it can also, I have another one here. I say, hey, look, visit this website and tell me what the organization, here's the organization name, offers in 1 sentence. Please output in a similar format as this. We help entrepreneurs and company leaders set up and use Zoho according to best practices. I want a concise sentence on what they do. So here is what it output. At Brockbank Consulting, we provide tailored Zoho implementation and consulting services to enhance business operations. So you see how much valuable information I'm getting without having had grabbed that information or required the information to be filled out on the form. So now I know so much more about them. Of course, I could add some other data points here like employee count and things like that. Just so you guys know, if you're using Zoom Info or any other kind of data broker, if you will, someone who's giving you data, you can actually plug this in as well. I'm just going to show you the evidence of that by going over here to Zoom Info. And you can see here, I can enrich company through Zoom Info. And the nice thing about Clay is they give you access to these other systems at a bulk rate. So you can put in your API key and use those, or you can pay for Clay credits, and then you can access these systems as well. Some of these systems will take a Clay credit, which is great. Okay, so keep that in mind. You can use other systems like Apollo too. I just want to show you Apollo. That's another popular one that I see people use all the time, a rich person, things like that. Okay. And then last thing here, sales process. You can see what I've done here. This is a ChatGPT node or workflow, if you want to call it that. It says, who does company, their ideal customer profile seems to be based on this offer. And then this is the result of this thing here. So essentially who does, this is a much more expanded version of the organization offer. I'm saying, give me their sales process. I want to understand who their ideal customer profile is. And that helps me understand, that helps me get into the mind of the people they're trying to sell to. Because when I build a Zoho system, I want to know all the details and I want to understand the customer journey as best as I can. And the process is the best that I can. The best way I can understand those is by putting myself in the shoes of the person that my clients are trying to sell or service. Okay. So then it pushes that information back to my system. Again, it uses actually the exact same webhook flow where it absorbs this information and then it updates the lead. I'll just show you kind of how that works. Here's the information coming from my webhook, and then I can update my lead. So this is really useful. You can see LinkedIn URL, offer, sales process title, all that information I'm adding back into my system. So you can see how powerful this is. Having all of this data allows me to understand more about the prospective client before I even meet with them. They book on my calendar. Now I know a bunch of information about them. And as a side note, but I think you'll find this interesting, I have an AI agent that sends 5 emails on Monday and Wednesday to my top 5 leads. And for each of those leads, it actually looks through the enriched data, the offer, and it looks through their sales process. And through that information, it tailors a personalized response. So this AI agent looks at the record and says, hey, their sales process is this, or this is their industry. And based on their industry, I'm going to craft a message for them. So to be a little more specific here, what the AI agent does is it finds the top 5 leads, looks at their industry and says, hey, I found a piece of content on, and then it looks through my YouTube channel. I found this Zoho CRM masterclass that would be helpful for you based on helping veterans get their benefits, based on seeing that you sell XYZ product to ABC customer. It can just fill in the blanks for you. And so that's really nice because now I'm not just sending a template to people, I'm sending a personalized message to people at scale. Okay. And that's what you want. You want people when they read a message to think, okay, well, that would be really, maybe AI did do this, but it seems very personal. It seems tailored to me. So lots of benefits here. And that is my AI agent that can do data enrichment. And then last thing I'm going to show you here is something that Clay can do in addition to this, which is find local businesses. So I'm going to help you generate lists from scratch as well. Okay, so if you're doing local or if you have organizations within a radius that you want to generate a list from, you can also go here for business types and you can essentially drop a pin on the map. And then you can say, hey, I want car rentals in this area. Here's the number of results that I want. You can use business types. You can also do free text and just say, like this one says tax preparation. That's pretty good. You could do law firms, number of results, type in 1 and then continue. And then if you want a blank table, it will create a list for you. So I'm out of AI or I'm out of credits, I think here. But what it will do is generate a list that will look something like this. To give you an example, foreign distributions. I did find local businesses using Google Maps. It's the same thing. This is what it will generate. Okay. So it's really useful for building lists and it's useful for enriching lists. So that is my AI agent for enriching information. Let's go over my AI training agent. This is what it can do. I can ask a question like, how do I do Z-Blitz? It's a task we do for clients. And how do I create SOPs? Okay, so I'll ask this question. Now what it's going to do is it's going to go into my SOP database and fish up the SOPs. If you don't know SOPs, those are standard operating procedures. They're documents detailing step-by-step how to do things. It's going to find the right SOPs and fish them up for me. So I'm going to show you exactly how this works, but I want to give you a quick demo. And while we're waiting on this, the reason this is critical is if I build a system for someone, Zoho or any organization, and I fail to train their team or the people who are going to use it on how to use it, then I've done them a massive disservice. So training is extremely important. Normally I'll put SOPs in people's Zoho Learn app if they have Zoho 1, which is what I'd recommend you to do. But the nice thing is if you just have Google Drive or a cloud storage, I can use that too. We can just put all of the SOPs in there and then we can use an AI agent to fish them up quickly. So what this did, you'll notice I said, how do I do Z-Blitz and how do I create SOPs? It says, hey, below are the official resources for both performing zblitz and creating standard operating procedures. Now I'm going to take a step back before I read through the rest of this because it's important that you know the strategy behind what I'm doing. So training is so critical and important, and it's often overlooked, and it's almost always done incorrectly. When you train someone, do this. First, copy my standard operating procedure on creating standard operating procedures. It's a meta SOP, if you will. And the meta SOP standardizes all the SOPs you're going to create. When you want to train somebody, record using Loom or some kind of video recorder what you're doing. And then send that recording to somebody that you want to train with the video demonstrating how you did it. You need to have a video of you doing the thing you want them to do. And then send them the SOP, just a link to it. Say, hey, this is my standard operating procedure on creating SOPs. And you can steal mine. You don't even have to create that. You don't have to create the SOP on creating SOPs. Just steal mine. And then they'll go ahead and create the document. The document might look something like this, okay? How to create an SOP, something like this, okay? Very simple, step by step, how to do something. If you want to copy this, take a screenshot, copy all the text. You can even take the Loom video on how I do it. Great, you can take the whole thing. I don't mind at all. Steal this and then have your how to create an SOP. So the reason that I suggest this, the strategy is that you don't create any SOPs. You're busy and you want to train other people on how to do things. Record yourself doing it once and always think in the back of your mind, I'm one recording away from never having to do this thing again. Record it, send it to someone with the SOP on how to create an SOP, and then they'll create the SOP and they'll put it in a folder or in Zoho Learn, wherever you're storing your internal training procedures, okay? From there, it kicks off this flow, okay? And this flow looks like this. So there's a Google Drive trigger. I'm using Google Drive in this case. I really wish I could use Zoho Learn. The reason I can't use Zoho Learn, which is meant for storing standard operating procedures and internal training, is Zoho Learn doesn't have an API that I can use yet. But in the future, I expect that it will. But for now, I'm going to use Google Drive because we're on Google Workspace. Yes, we're cheating on Zoho Workspace. We love Zoho, but some of the apps in Zoho are not as robust as apps we like in Google's suite of applications. That's why we do it, okay? I do use Zoho Work Drive in some cases, but in this case, I'm going to use Google Drive because it's more widely used. Okay, so what happens is when a file is created here, right? So if I go into this folder and I create a file, I import a new file or create a new document, what's going to happen is this flow, it's called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, or in other words, it's saying, hey, when you prompt AI, not only is it going to use its LLM to answer your questions, which is its large language model and how it understands language, it's also going to use your information, your unstructured information. And when I say unstructured information, I'm talking more like a Word doc, less like a Google Sheet. A Google Sheet or a database is what I would call structured information. So RAG workflows are helpful for unstructured information. Now it takes that file and it downloads that file, and then it extracts the text from the file, and then it adds it to a vector store. And a vector store essentially turns text into math. Now the best way that I can explain it is like this. So it takes a document, it breaks down the document into blobs, okay? And these blobs right here, do you see how this is like a piece of the content that was uploaded? Here's another piece of the page content that was uploaded. It turns this text into a number, okay? So you can see here that all these different pieces of text were turned into different numbers. And now you can imagine inside of the vector store, when you think of a vector store, I want you to think of a spreadsheet. Let's just go into it. I'll show it to you right now. It's a table of information. And you see what happened here is we have team member will write the checklist questions, the checklist section here. It's saying, hey, this is the blob or the piece of text. And here is some metadata. We'll talk about metadata in just a second. Let's skip that for now. Here is the embedded vector. Okay, in other words, this right here, if I can expand it for you to see better, these are the numbers we have assigned to this blob. And why do we do this? Why do we use vector stores? Well, it makes it easier for an AI agent to get information that's unstructured. So think about it this way: when I ask a question in Click, like how do I do zblitz and how do I create SOPs, it turns how do I create SOPs into 4912228 or something, and then zblitz into 9421613, and it says, hey, those numbers are very similar to these numbers right here. So I'm pulling this relevant how to create an SOP document because I found it based on numbers, not words. Think about it this way: if I were to use a SQL database or SQL, by the way, SQL, if you want to see it, here's some SQL right here. Select from where. This is a query saying, hey, I want you to find zblitz based on the name zblitz. Well, I would have to spell zblitz exactly right, case sensitive and everything. So it would have a hard time searching through this database. And I'd have to do a contains, like if contains zblitz. It would just be really messy. It doesn't work using this way. That's why I try to distinguish between structured information and unstructured, because the way the AI agent works to pull the information is so different. So you have to be aware of it. Now let's jump back over to the table here. So we've got the math now. So I hope this makes sense. When I searched for in Click, how do I do zblitz and how do I create SOPs? The AI agent turned this piece of text into numbers as well. So it turns your SOPs into numbers and it turns your request into numbers and says, hey, these numbers are close to these numbers in the vector store. And here's the vector store right here. Once it matches the numbers, it goes into the metadata and says, hey, this is the metadata is just information about information. So the information about this metadata is, hey, these numbers actually relates to this link. And this link is to a document that's about creating SOPs. This one, in this specific case, it didn't have a title. Let's try to find one with the title maybe. You can see here how to implement zblitz. Right here's the title. So it's information about information. By the way, this happens automatically. I don't have to train the AI agent how to do this. If we go to this RAG workflow, you can see here that I chose this text embedding 3 small. It through OpenAI, it already understands how to embed information into a vector store. That's the proper terminology, is you embed information into a vector store. Essentially converts text into vector numbers, so it's easily searched by an AI agent. Okay, and then it loads the information into Supabase. You can see here some of the metadata that I added, right? So here's some metadata. I chose how the metadata was going to pass over, so that enters here. So let me break it down. I ask a question: how do I do zblitz and how do I create SOPs? And that specifically goes through here, prompt enhancer, executive AI agent, and then it goes through my Supabase vector store. And I'm going to show that to you right now because we just executed this a couple seconds ago. Maybe a couple minutes ago. Let's jump over here. I think it was this execution most recently. Let's check it out. Here we go. So in Supabase Vector Store, you can see I asked the question. If we look at the logs, or if I go here, how do I create a standard operating procedure and how do I execute zblitz, right? That was the question. The AI agent chose to trigger this tool. Here's the Supabase Vector Store. And you can see here that it triggered the Supabase Vector Store and it said, hey, this is the page content we found based on the numbers, because it took that text and it turned it into a number. And it used that number to search for the most similar numbers in the vector store. And then it pulled this text, okay? So page content, how to implement zblitz, how to complete executive dashboard, pulled all this text into the response. It was all of the blobs with numbers relevant to the numbers from the request. I know this is confusing. It's a really hard thing to wrap your head around, but you're going to be able to get it. It just takes some time. So these are all the relevant blobs to the question. The nice thing about these blobs is it contains the metadata, and the metadata is structured. So it uses the vector number to search, and then it uses the structured data to get me things like the link. That way the blob doesn't actually cut off the link halfway through and then it gives me a bad link. It can use metadata information to give me things exactly the way that I want. And then I can use the vector embedding here, these numbers, to get the relevant SOPs based on my search. So I know these things can kind of sound like gibberish if you're not super technical, but here's the basics of it. What a vector store does is it makes it makes information like standard operating procedure documents like this easy to search for. It just makes it easy to search for an AI agent. Okay. And then number two, if we're going to take it a level even deeper, it turns your requests into numbers like we're seeing here inside of my AI agent. It turns this response into numbers so that it can search through the vector store. And then you can see here's the different numbers that it's converting to or that it's pulling from. Here's the different numbers, right? And then those numbers are looking through this database and saying, hey, matches these numbers, or at least it's close to these numbers. It's the closest thing we got to these numbers. And it says, okay, we made a match here. And then it looks to this metadata right here. And it says, okay, you know what? This is the link that's relevant. And so we're going to pull it into this chat right here. Here's how to implement zblitz. Here's how to create the SOP. And then it can also look and say, hey, here's a Loom video as well. Like, let's pull the Loom video in. And then boom, here you go. Here's a Loom video. I click on it. And then here's a Loom video. Click on this. Here's a video on it. Okay, so it can pull that stuff in. Really, really helpful. So the reason this is beneficial is if you have two SOPs, it's not super helpful, right? You can just go into a folder and click on it. Imagine having 600 SOPs. Once you start creating SOPs correctly, it becomes an addiction. When you create an SOP correctly, instead of you creating it, you have a SOP on creating SOPs, and then you create videos and send it to people, and they create the SOPs for you. It becomes addicting because you become a delegation machine, because you always think to yourself, I'm only one recording of this thing away from not having to do it anymore, and I can delegate it to someone on my team. I can build a team, and then I can give them what they need in order for them to properly handle tasks that I give them. I'm setting them up for success because I gave them a training document and they create an SOP based on it. So it's not going to give them 100% of the detail on how to do it, but at least I'm setting them up for success, not for failure. And then second, if you layer that with an AI executive assistant, essentially what you're doing is making it easy for them to access. So instead of them sending you this message, how do I do zblitz and how do I create SOPs? The executive assistant is training them on how to do the thing and essentially gave them a course on it pulled the relevant SOPs, not just one, multiple SOPs, to give them a little course here in the videos on how to do the thing. So number one, I gave you the strategy for building a knowledge base according to best practices, and two, the best way to retrieve the information. Now, this is just a side note. If you're not ready for this, use the SOP, start creating SOPs, and then just have them in Zoho Learn and people can search there. But that search functionality, if you search in Zoho Learn or another SOP storage or internal knowledge base tool, it's not going to find the two most relevant SOPs. It can't answer these more advanced questions that have two things. If you were to type in how do I do zblitz and how do I create SOPs in Zoho Learn, it's not even going to know what to do. It's not going to be able to do anything. Agents are smarter than that. It can pull relevant information, pull in the links and things like that. So with that, that is my AI training agent, and I will see you in the next section. Let's talk about Co-Creator. This is an AI agent built into Zoho Creator. It's native, right? So where we can take advantage of native AI agents, then we should. But if we can't create an AI agent that does what we want inside of Zoho natively, that's when we go to tools like N8N, okay? If it can be done natively, great. We're already paying for it, let's do it. If we can't do it, let's go to N8N. So this is how you can create apps inside of Creator. So you're gonna go to Creator first. If you don't know anything about Zoho Creator, it essentially helps you build apps from scratch to meet your unique requirements. So in other words, if there's an app, Zoho's got 45 plus apps, maybe even 50 plus apps. If one of them doesn't fit your needs, use Zoho Co-Creator to create the app that you do need. For example, go to create new application, and not an application like a form that you fill out, application like Zoho CRM is an application. You go to create using Zia. Zia is Zoho's AI agent or Zoho's AI built into Zoho. Then you can go to create, and then you can describe what you want your app to do. So build me an app where I can keep track of my strategy quarter over quarter and my KPIs and objectives. Okay, so I can just ask the question and I can hit start building. And then also while this is going, my other thoughts on this is I like N8N too because it's just capable of a lot. Zoho's AI agent builder at time of recording this hasn't come out yet, but it does have AI agent capabilities, and that's what I want to display in this video in addition to N8N and N8N agents that we can build and integrate with Zoho. Okay, so with this is really cool. App Builder, you can see all the different objects in the data model. Now that's some jargon, so I'm going to break this down. When I say objects, those are things in real life represented digitally. So for example, a strategy, that is real, right? Like everyone's got to have a strategy for their organization. But I need to make a place inside of the app where I can store my strategy. Okay, so an object is a thing that you're representing digitally. The thing we're representing digitally is the strategy, it's the KPI, it's the objectives. So what's cool about this is Zoho was smart enough to look through my prompt. Remember I said, build me an app for my strategy quarter to quarter. And I want to keep track of my KPIs and objectives. It created KPI objectives. It created the fields for those things too. And it linked them together. That's why you're seeing these links here. Some of the objects have relationships to each other. Some things relate to other things. And that's what it's demonstrating here, that it's able to build. So I'm also able to add custom things here, custom use cases. And then I can also generate some additional things too. So quarterly review analysis, it can add additional things to my data model. You can see now it's regenerating the data model and it's giving me another view for it, which is cool. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go to create applications. It's kind of human in the looping you. When I say human in the loop, AI does something and says, was this right? And then you say, yes, create the application. So gives you an opportunity to look through the data model, see if it's correct, and then go from there. We don't have time to go over what would make it a good data model versus a bad data model. But if you want to go into data normalization and things like that, it's a fun rabbit hole you can go down if you're a total nerd. So now, like I am, by the way, I'm one of those people. So now I just hit generate. We're going to wait for Creator to work its magic. And then I was just explaining earlier, while this is loading, N8N is just more capable in a lot of ways than I think most native AI agent builders are going to be. I want to be blown away by Zoho's AI agent builder, but I need to see it first. So until then, I'm going to be pretty much married to N8N. That's what I use internally. I already paid for it. Let's just refresh this. Might be having a tricky time actually displaying this. And then you can see here, boom, quarterly performance tracking, right? This wasn't here before. This was just added. And here is the app. Looks pretty cool, actually. Okay, so it did a really good job. So enter quarter. I can enter the quarter here. Can I? Let's say Q2 and search. And that part doesn't work. That's kind of funny. Let's see if I do quarter. I'm just going to copy this quarter and put it in and see if it works. Okay, so it doesn't work, but added the right UI, UX, which is interesting. You know, I added the component. I wouldn't say this is the appropriate place to put it, or it's not understanding the user journey super well. Like no one's going to plug in quarter and say, bring me the KPIs for that quarter. Maybe you would, but I don't think so. So here's strategy 1, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't really make sense. KPIs doesn't make sense. But what's impressive about this is it kind of built the baseline of the app. That's what I'm kind of shocked by. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Here's the strategy. Okay, and here we go. Here's the strategies, right? Strategy, description, boost operational efficiency. And then these are the IDs. Okay, so this is making a little more sense. It's showing the IDs here, but still, and then the quarter, and then the actual number, the target number, percentage. So some pretty cool things here. Distribution by quarter. That's just how many KPIs or strategies we're looking at per quarter. Average percentages, average progress, total strategies. You can see the different objects that it created here. So is this going to create 100% of the app that you need? No. But it's going to get much better at building the baseline of the app so that you don't have to. And that's really, really useful to be able to, from natural language, kick off the app. One of the worst things in the world is staring at a blank page, not knowing what to do. and Co-Creator effectively removes that. It's going to get better over time, but you can see it's pretty impressive. I've taken, 5 seconds to prompt this thing and it created an entire app for me. That is the beauty of the native AI agent Co-Creator inside of Zoho Creator. Let's talk about Zoho's native customer support AI agent. So if you go over to desk.zoho.com or Zoho Desk, you can go to one.zoho.com and then go to Zoho Desk from there as well. You're going to go into settings, that's in the top right here, and then you're going to see under ZIA, which is Zoho's AI that's built into most Zoho apps, if not all of them, then over to Answer Bot. Now you'll have to go to generative AI as well, and then just select some of these things like insights, summary, writing assistance, reply assistance. This is essentially how you're going to use AI throughout the app. But if you go to Answer Bot, this is where things get interesting. So if you create an Answer Bot, I'm going to give you a quick demo here and then I'll kind of break it down. So we're going to go to Service Bot and it says, hello, how can I help? So I can say something like, how do I answer a ticket? I can ask a question and then it's going to pull up the relevant resource for me. You can answer a ticket by quickly using auto suggest articles, which pulls up blah, 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 blah. And it says, answering your first ticket, Zoho Desk packs a bunch of features that are expressly there to help you respond to tickets smartly, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what is this? What is this doing? It's allowing you to chat with the knowledge base. Okay, so you build a knowledge base inside of Zoho Desk. As you answer tickets day in, day out as an agent, you start to build snippets, little pieces of text that you can use to quickly respond. Then you build templates that the whole organization can use to respond to things. Then you build fully flushed out knowledge base articles that you can then use internally, right, to quickly respond to things. And you can use knowledge base in your help center so people can go to frequently asked questions in your help.yourdomain.com part of your website. They can see all the articles that you published, okay? So why am I bringing that up? Well, internally, you don't want to sift through and read every single document in your knowledge. Maybe you do, but you don't want to do that every time you have to answer a question. So what you can quickly do is use Service Bot to say, hey, how do I answer a ticket? You can just ask the question. It will pull the relevant document up for you. It should be similar to you seeing this where I said, how do I do zblitz and how do I create SOPs? And it pull up my internal knowledge base, right? My internal knowledge base is a little different, right? These are SOPs on how to do things internally. There is some overlap, but this Service Bot is different in that these are resources specifically for a customer support team. That's the big difference there. So that's what I'm able to do, and ask questions, and then it can give me a quick response, and it can also find the correct document for me. Okay, that's what's really useful about this. Now, once we go to, that was the bot preview. You can see all the articles that this is linked into or linked to. This is really answering your first ticket. This is a more in-depth one here. This is a very, very light example of an article. And then you got, this is a test. But it can look through those articles and fish up the right one. That's what's special about this customer support bot. I'm going to show you some more information here. So when you go to create this answer bot, okay, you can enable it for agents. Those are people who are in your Zoho Desk instance internally, the agents who actually work for you, or the agents that are your coworkers. And then you have your customers. So you can promote self-service. So think about how valuable this is. What I just did where I said, hey, how do I respond to a ticket? They could say, hey, how do I find ABC information in the portal? And if you have a knowledge base already created for that thing, if you have a knowledge base article created for that thing, then the AI will find it and fish it up for your customer. So it improves the self-service thing here. And you can choose the channels. If you have a help center, it will pop up there and you can use it. So it uses generative AI. You will have to configure the service here. In this section, which I showed you earlier, you'll have to make sure it's enabled, but it works pretty well. And then you can set some default messages too. So these messages will appear by default and guide the end user during their chat interaction. So this is the welcome message. And then this is when the bot isn't able to answer, it just says, hey, I don't have enough info here. When the user gives a thumbs down, you can choose the response there as well. But this is the service bot. It's native to Zoho Desk. Now this was, what I think everyone should do here is when you're inside of Zoho, if there's a native agent, go ahead and use it. If it meets your requirements, great. If it doesn't meet your requirements, maybe you look at something like N8N, or when the AI agent builder is available inside of Zoho and they are going to build a AI agent builder, then you can go use that. Okay. So until then, I would use N8N. At the time of recording this, the Zoho AI agent builder is not available, but I'm really excited for when it is. But even when it is available, I wouldn't consider it a bad choice to build agents in N8N, because N8N has a lot of advantages that I think will still be useful even after Zoho comes out with an AI agent builder. But with that, that is the Answer AI agent inside of Zoho Desk. It's very useful. It's quick to set up. If you already have a knowledge base inside of Zoho Desk, this is a must-use feature.